can sing when he wants to. He'll just burst out in song.
I would like to announce that a quorum is present. The meeting is duly called, and a notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. The time is now 6 o'clock, and the following board members are in attendance: Rhonda Timish, Catherine Sells, Christy Hassett, Tracy Miller, Jenny Prosnick, Tricia Sheffield, and Angie Cox. Would someone like to lead us in a prayer? Mr. Miller?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to get together this evening and kind of take a step back and really start looking at how we can plan for the future. We pray, or thank you particularly for the staff that's here tonight that can help prepare us as a board to make the best decisions. We pray that the way that we interact with each other this evening, the way that we collaborate, the way we come to consensus is done in a way that is an example for kids who would be in the room or other adults. And we pray, Father, that most of all we'll remember that we're here for kids, and kids that are hungry, tired, sick, scared, or don't come to school, not kids that we can educate. And within that, there's a whole infrastructure of services that are required to help our kids come to school. And when they get here, Lord, we just pray that we'll do the best we can. We're not perfect, our teacher's not perfect, but we'll do the best we can in educating them, caring for them, loving them, and helping them see a future that they can create and that we can help them create. Thanks for those who invested so much time, and our staff who continues to guide us well, for the trustees that, in spite of busy lives, come here tonight to serve. And we just pray at the end of this meeting, it's a meeting we can look at and say, that was a good meeting. We learned a lot. We are positioned well to make some good decisions. For that we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, the Texas Pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Well, I just want to let everyone know, thank you very much for your time. And we will have a timer up here so the board members all know that kind of each of the statements are put on a time, and the clock will be running up there for your portion of the agenda. Dr. Rogers.
So one of the things, thank you, Ms. Cox, that we've changed on not only our work session agendas but our regular board agendas is we felt like it was important to put our vision and mission statement on there. You notice our logo is on there, so those are all new things. And then because of our four cornerstones and then with our I statements that we've really tried to begin emphasizing this past year, we thought it might be important for all of us to each one of our work sessions to just focus on one of them just real briefly. And so I'm going to punt it to Lori or Dr. Rapp, and we'll go from there. And you do have the I statements in a little poster.
So each month, one of the things that we do when we have, quarterly, when we have learning leaders with principals and district staff, is we focus on a cornerstone each meeting. And we specifically have partnered with communications across learning and teaching and the assistant chiefs and schools and student activities to identify exemplars of these I statements in action. So you have with you tonight one of the posters that was passed out at the beginning of the school year that just brings the whole vision and mission together along with those graduate profile skills at the top. And so the I statement we're going to focus on this evening is I ensure learning is based on defined standards. And I want to share with you at this meeting one of the videos that we shared with principals and district staff about what that means in action with the teacher.
And what we do is we start in stage one. Our curriculum has done an amazing job of assigning the standards in stage one. Defining it by each 9 weeks. And so that's where we start. We look at stage one, and we do that as a team. So everybody is on the same page for each 9 weeks. Then we move on to stage two. We look at our assessment, and we figure out, okay, which of the standards how do we plug it in weekly? We don't actually do our planning during that time, but it is an intentional time to look at those standards. So then we move to the assessment. Then we move to stage 3, and we decide, okay, what is our best resource to meet these standards, to make sure our students are successful in the assessment. And really, we need the time to dig into the resources. We also take advantage of our curriculum facilitators, and we've had them come out. Our principals have been great to give us the time to have them come out and meet with us as a team to look at certain standards that might be challenging for our students or maybe are a challenge to teach. And so we'll have them come in and model for us. And so nobody here is afraid to do that because it's just such a great learning tool, and those facilitators are happy to do that. So that is another way that we help define the standards. So then when we're planning weekly, we know that we have the end in mind. We know the assessment piece, we know the standards that everyone has to meet. And so it just allows us to really focus on the standards.
As we talked about a couple of weeks ago when we made the decision to move from board committees to work sessions, one of the things we promised is that we would always start our work sessions with a learning and teaching focus. So back to Dr. Rapp.
All right, so in the spirit of curriculum and programs, which is no longer curriculum and programs, we always had an invited guest at every curriculum and programs meeting in order to report out on the work that was going on. So first we're going to provide an update about the STEM Academy, and then we'll take questions on that, and then we'll move into an update on the Collegiate Academy. Basically, what I would like to point out before Jonas and Ms. Gall and Ms. Wooten get started, you want to go ahead and advance to the first slide for me, is just the coordination that we've been working to have across schools and student activities and learning and teaching. We've worked very hard to ensure that our presentations, our processes have been coordinated as much as possible between the two academies. Given that one's at high school and one's at elementary, some things don't always apply, but we've worked hard to ensure we're consistent about our approach in transportation. The format of our parent presentations have been very similar. We've talked about the why, the vision, describing the academy, and sharing a video and providing examples of things. And then we're creating program handbooks as well as program evaluation templates so that right from the beginning we can be defining the purpose of these academies and what success looks like when we start monitoring that. And ultimately, we've partnered in both realms with communications to put together the informational materials, the marketing approach, and all of the things of that nature. So I'm proud, super proud of the work that's been done and the precedent that's being established by this team of people that you're going to hear from tonight as they launch academies for us in this school district.
In preparation for the STEM Academy, the first thing we had to do was develop local standards for elementary engineering. So you're probably familiar that engineering is not one of the content areas in elementary that the state gives us Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills for. So we had to create our own district local standards for engineering. And we utilized the engineering programs at middle school and high school as kind of a vertical. What do we need to provide in elementary school to prepare our kids to be successful in those middle school and high school engineering programs? And so the bulk of our curriculum that's being developed currently, we have 2 teachers from every grade level from Donald Elementary and 2 teachers from every grade level at Polzer Elementary. Those will be our first STEM academies. We have 2 teachers from every grade level working on the development of curriculum for the engineering component of our STEM academy. So just to give you a preview of some of the engineering components that we've designed and developed, every grade level will have 8 units for our engineering curriculum, and those units will be focused on the engineering design. So what I have here is the graphic we use for the engineering design process. All of the curriculum is designed around real-world situations. So the picture you see here is actually a picture from one of our elementary schools here in Lewisville, where every time it rains, the dirt and soil around the bike racks gets washed onto the concrete. And so as students learn about the concepts of weathering, erosion, and deposition in science, they can then apply that knowledge to real-world situations, such as designing a solution that would stop erosion problems in the schoolyard. And so students can design and create erosion control devices that could be implemented or used in the real world to stop erosion from happening. So every experience that students are getting in the engineering curriculum is tied to a real world problem. And students follow this engineering process to solve that problem. So first they would ask questions about the problem. They would imagine solutions to create that would solve the problem. They're going to plan steps to follow to create the solution. They're going to actually create a prototype of the solution. Then they're going to get feedback from their peers and classmates, or maybe even STEM professionals in the real world. So we might bring in somebody who actually does erosion control in the real world, a landscaper, to come give us feedback on the prototypes we've created. And then students will share their creations with the community members we bring in, or with parents. We might have parent nights where we bring parents in to see the creations that kids have created. And so that's kind of the steps of the engineering design process. Every unit in the 8 units for every grade level follows these steps. And so as students complete projects, these steps are kind of the foundation. These steps also make up a bulk of the local standards that we've created. The local standards follow these engineering design processes as well. So with that, just to give you a preview of some of the curriculum units, we have 4 of the units aligned to science and math standards. And so as students are learning science and math concepts, the engineering tasks that they're designing and creating are going to align to the concepts that are being taught in the science and math classroom. So really bridging that integrated connection across content areas as we explore real-world problems. We also have a unit in every grade level, kindergarten through 5th grade, will focus on robotics. And so every student will get robotics instruction, scaffold from simple robotics experiments in kindergarten through more complex experiences in 5th grade. We'll also do computer programming. We'll start with block coding in the younger grade levels and scaffold into Scratch and Scratch Junior. And if you're familiar with the Scratch, it starts kids with block coding, but then it also transitions them into line coding, so they can actually look at the lines of code that they've developed after they've done their block coding, and introduces them into actually writing the scripts for the programming in the upper grade levels. And so every grade level will have a piece of robotics, and every grade level will have a piece of computer programming. That's unique to new to elementary curriculum. We don't currently have in any of our curriculum a robotics or computer programming component. And then you see there the kids designing a bridge. That's an example of an engineering challenge that would be tied to math and science standards that they're currently learning. So that's just kind of a preview of what we're working on. We've met 4 times with our curriculum writers. We have 3 more meetings planned. Every grade level is looking at about 6 of the 8 units in completion so far. And so we're right on track to having everything completed at our last meeting, which is in June, for our opening in August. So time frame is approaching. Just to clarify some misconceptions. So we've had some misconceptions that, you're only doing STEM during your engineering time, but actually STEM involves the science learning and the math learning and the technology learning and even language arts. We talk about language arts components that could be integrated into the design process as well, because engineers have to be able to communicate, read, and write in order to share their ideas with other people. And so STEM is not just the engineering block, but STEM is STEM all day long. And so we've been addressing that misconception with parents as we've had parent nights, and also with teachers as we've been doing teacher trainings.
So just to go along with what Jonas has said about there not being engineering standards in the state of Texas, we have chosen and elected to extend the school day by 30 minutes for our elementary students. Of course, that's to make sure that we're not compromising any of the quality of the instruction in the other content areas, and we're integrating and still providing a very robust experience for those students to make it different than what a normal elementary campus would look like. So we want them to be able to solve real-world problems and do all the things Jonas spoke about, but we don't want to compromise the day by taking away from anything else that they need to have access to. So how is the STEM Academy different? We address this in all of our parent sessions, and I'll give you some numbers on that in just a moment, but we have daily engineering instruction, direct instruction, but also integrated throughout the contents, as Jonas pointed out. We're going to have that content integration written through the curriculum, like he said, developed with the teachers. Some STEM career exploration will be included, and the robotics, the computer programming, the problem solving and design thinking. Those are all things that will be happening at these STEM campuses, and they'll be able to do it successfully because of some of the steps that the teachers have taken currently at Donald and at Pulser. And so Michelle's going to share a little bit about that with you right now, and then we'll take questions when we're done.
So what I was asked to talk about is the National Institute for STEM Education, our teacher certification. So we were very, very, very lucky that we had the opportunity to become a nationally recognized STEM campus. That campus certification had 6 teachers that part of that certification process in order to become campus certified. I was very lucky when that opportunity presented itself. I presented it to my staff and said, well, because in the state of Texas, we would be the first not competitive, but I am competitive.
You're not.
But in addition to that, obviously the experience is going to be good. It's going to give us, it will take us to a different level of depth and complexity when it comes to this. Well, when I presented it, not only did it have 6 volunteer, it had 24, about 30 minutes. We're currently undergoing our certification with 20 staff. Myself and my assistant principal are part of that 24. And so they kind of blew me away, I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, it's that certification process. It's 38 modules, and it's not one of those things that you just look at or take a test or do something like that. That's not how this is built. It is built for you to go into classrooms, understand the instruction, and look at it through a different lens with science and it's been a learning process. It's been a learning process for me as well. I did bring my binder to kind of show you some of the lessons because I will never do it justice as far as what it all entails if you're interested in looking at some of them. The first part is that you kind of go in, you look at a lesson for about 20 minutes, kind of take that apart based on whatever indicator it is that you answer. Some of it has to do with like spatial arrangements. Others is actual inquiry, level of questioning is happening. So it's a lot of depth and complexity as far as. And then you take that document, you upload it, and then you have to write up an entire. But not only what have you learned through that, but how does that help you as you become sure that you're delivering the best instruction possible.
So I think at this point, real quickly, I think
Yeah.
we want to stop and be able to take your questions. We have the video, but in order to get to the questions, I think we won't show that. The video is the one we've been showing at the parent meetings, and I know many of you have either gone to some parent meetings or are planning to go, so you get to see it there. So I just want to be sure that we have time for your questions as I'm watching the timer and don't want to go over. I think we hit all the high points? Yes? Okay.
So it's lucky I'm sitting next to Mr. Boggs. My question's about the construction at Donald. We passed Calendar B, which shortens our summer and which shortens the time to make the physical changes at Donald while the intellectual changes and the curriculum changes are already happening. Are we going to meet that? And are we going to have the paint, the furniture, the installations, the flooring, and the permits, and it's all going to be ready to go August 15th, if not sooner?
That's a great question. I believe the answer to that is yes. Our construction guys are here, and they're nodding their heads that that's correct. The good news is, although that sounds like a lot, the list you just recited, which by the way is a great summary of what's happening there, compared to what's happening at some other campuses, that work is relatively minor. So I think we're in good shape in terms of the timeline at Donald.
Ms. Hassett?
Can you hear me? For curriculum-wise, we have a couple TEKs to teach normally, and we're adding in a lot of engineering STEMs. And so you don't have any concerns with making sure that our students are thoroughly prepared for any required state assessments, and they will still hit it out of the ballpark with those said assessments, just because I know we have so much to teach them already.
Sure, I think that you're actually, because there's more application
Applying.
depth and complexity, it really are. Those assessment questions are headed to being able to sing the content, not taking away.
And I just remind folks to please speak in the mics because this is being video streamed, so everyone needs to speak up.
Finish.
Else? I just was wondering, Michelle, these certifications, are these individual learning modules or are these group modules? How long does a module take to complete? And will these certifications be completed by the opening?
That's a great question. It is both.
Okay.
So for the teacher modules that we do, as far as time-wise, it's an hour and a half, depending upon the module. To the root of it, that takes at the end, like the first 15, those were probably a little bit shorter. The projection, as far as teachers and campus being completed, so far we are on, not just Gene passes that my teacher. So I've gotten creative with that, and it has worked very, very well. First milestone was the end of that. She were on maternity leave, so I give them a break.
And so they're done individually,
Those are done
learning's done
individually.
individually.
And then the campus one, that is 27 modules. That's done more collaboratively. All part of that together. And I'm assuming it's going to kind of come in waves with that, with the chunking.
Sheffield?
Okay, so can you remind me on when we do this at Donald,
Yes.
does that encompass the entire campus? So if I'm a Donald parent and I am not really interested in being on a STEM campus, what happens to me? can you give us some feedback from the parent sessions that you've had so far? Like what kind of concerns have been broached or?
Yeah, Jonas and I can kind of tag team with this one. So far, I know it's on your paper, we've had about 400 families who have either already attended or are coming. We have currently 200 who have already applied because they've come to the session. Our parent questions tend to be related to nothing to do with the extended time, by the way, just so you know, we include that, but it's really not a concern at all. How can I get my kid in faster? Is there anything I can do to get ahead of the game? Can I move here into this zone and still be able to attend? We've had a couple of middle school. Yes, if my child has better grades, things like that, may I get in faster?
So
We've had some
rent
comical
on
ones.
homes in the Donald.
Yes, Donald will probably pick up in their real estate right now.
No, I had 2 real estate agents call. The happening in the last 2 weeks.
And then a few questions here and there. We have a STEM email address that Jonas has set up so parents can actually email us as well, because a lot of them have individual situations they want to ask you about. A few are just about middle school, and we've explained to them that we're in the process of developing that pathway as well, and that will be ready before the 3rd graders coming in next year are going into middle school. That's been pretty much the gist of what we've received question-wise.
But what happens to the 4th and 5th graders?
The 4th and 5th graders are still exposed to the experience, and they still have the extended 30 minutes per day, but we're not taking applicants in 4th and 5th so that we have time to develop it really well without sending them into middle school without an option.
Okay, perfect.
And if those are selected.
Miller?
Thank you. How many of the students that you have now are new to LISD?
Applicants or just families?
It's about the numbers for me, so 15 times 12,000 a year type thing. You know, how many students enrolled?
So the applications, it's about 10% of our applicants are currently not enrolled in LISD. That does not include incoming kindergartners, because all of our incoming kindergartners are not enrolled currently in LISD, but about 10% of our numbers are from charter schools, private schools, homeschooled, currently.
And what's the base? 400, 300, right? So 330,
We have 200 applicants right now.
200 applicants. So 40 are applicants outside of LISD.
About 20.
About 20. Okay.
10%.
Yeah.
Okay. My math calculator's not working well. And of those applicants, we're going to take how many?
She has space at her campus for 88.
88. So
Year 1, and we'll add 22 additional in year 2 and 22 additional in year 3, and it'll be a total of about 130-ish kids once she's at full rollout.
Okay. So we'll probably take about 20% of the applicants. And, roughly, I mean, if you've got 400 and you're going to settle on 80, 88, it's 20%. And then, so that number, if it applied, then you'd get 8 kids from outside of LISD. And any other kids that they bring along, I'm sure we'd make accommodations for them. Okay. Just always thinking about how we draw more kids into LISD.
Well, I think something to point out is something Michelle just mentioned as well, which is an unintended great consequence of what we're doing. Some of her families who currently live within, who've been homeschooled or in private school, are reaching out to her to enroll that would not be an applicant. They currently live in the zone, and that's been about, what'd you say,
So in the last 2
8 to
days,
10?
I've had 6. The rest in month, that was.
They live in her zone, they don't go through our application process.
Right, still to come. So they wanted to give us the heads up.
So I just want to be clear, of the 4,400, most of those are not enrolled in LISD today?
The The
Of
400
the
was
400
the total.
interested, most of them are current enrollees in
Okay.
LASD.
Okay, about
That
40
are-
or not?
That's correct.
Right, okay. So am I misunderstanding, Lauren?
No, but Jonas, real quickly, after the postcards were sent out from the families that were targeted, your response to that was 120, and that was targeted communication to people that are not in the school district.
Yes, so we worked with Amanda Brim's team, and we intentionally did marketing to every household west of 35 that had kids between ages of 0 and 8 who were not currently enrolled in LISD. They all got a postcard explaining to them about the program and leading them to our website, which has more information. And then for all of our currently enrolled families, we did a similar flyer, but it went home in their Tuesday folders, and we did an email blast through Skyward of all of those families west of 35.
So I think the only reason I asked that was just because ultimately out of 400 and some odd interest, 120 of those were not currently enrolled based on the targeted communication. And so far, with still 3 parent sessions to go, we've got about 20 out of the 200 who've actually applied that are not. I hope that breaks
Yeah,
down the
okay.
numbers for you.
And I just think about, kind of our broader discussion about how to bring kids into LISD, this, and the Dual Credit Academy are quick ways to do that. So excited that parents weren't considering us. What happens practically at the campus? You've got your STEM kids. Now, I understand you've got a STEM culture inoculated throughout the entire campus, but and then you've got your gen ed kids that are to be taken.
Everybody's STEM.
Everybody's there. So if so did you say that if a kid's not going to be in the program, we find a place for them in another school?
Correct. If they don't-
Got it. Okay, great. And the last thing I'd leave was STEAM. So I like how you were talking about these engineering things, right? And so there's a progression that, Jonas, you or someone, if you could just look at it, as these young kids learn this at a young age, the engineering skills, those skills tend to branch off, right? There's designers and builders, and then there are people who have to focus on the experience. And this is where the STEAM comes in that Sir Ken Robinson talks about, kids with arts blended into the STEAM. So it'd be curious over time as you mature, right? And these kids go on, how you separate. Hey, you're going to be the builder, and you're going to be the designer, and you're going to be the whatever, right? Because a designer is a different role. It designs experience. You get into a car, someone designs that experience. It's a very different role than the person that designs the car and builds it. And at some point in time, it would be great to see this progress, if it does, just so maybe take that as a placeholder. Tell us when that starts to happen, when it evolves, when they go to middle school or whatever.
So our elementary program, we actually call it a STEM Plus model, because once you get to the acronyms, you can add language arts or art or
Yeah.
PE or
Great.
music. And so we actually approach it from a STEM Plus aspect, where it's STEM plus all of those other areas, social studies as well. And so I hope that when we start looking at our middle school program, that we have some course offerings that would fit towards those students' interests as they develop. In elementary school, we try to give them the full scope of all of the options.
Great. So, Dr. Rogers and Ms. Cox, I'd just say this is one that I think the staff deserves a well done. Right? We had a vision, bunch of ideas, fragmented ideas, opinions from trustees, whatever, and well done. And the more that we can do this to draw in kids, it's not that bad, Lori. I give it up periodically.
I'm just saying that.
The more we can do this to draw kids in, those kids that weren't thinking about LISD, awesome. So thank you guys. Looking forward to seeing some great things. I know we got to make it over. I have got to make it over there yet. So
There's one tomorrow night. It's a great presentation.
tomorrow's a good night. That's a good night. I'll be there. Thank you.
Can I just have one quick question? First of all, I do love the integration of the hands-on. I think that's a great opportunity for kids to actually understand and learn kind of what they're doing and put all that together. But my question is, if you'll be at, obviously, capacity when we bring on more kids, are you going to need to hire more teachers? And what does that look like? And what does that look like, Dr. Rogers, from the standpoint taking kids from other campuses of LASD, what that does to those campuses? will you, a question to add on to that, will you be adding specials because you'll have more children? Okay, so.
I should have the numbers. So anyway, so yes, in answer to your question, yes, we're going to have teachers, but the way this is going to work out. Just roll with it, but it should not have an impact.
Yeah,
I'm tracking the applications. It's an even distribution, and so with a randomized selection, we're not going to be taking a huge chunk from one single campus.
and the good thing really that goes back to the early application process, sort of like our transfer application that's been moved up, is we'll have all those decisions made well before we have to finalize staffing. So that's the good news.
Dr. Bonner, he's already got it. He's been on top of it.
Good. That's great.
Time, but I will take one of the questions that was would that one be?
That's great. We're looking forward to
I have
it.
one more question.
Ms. Ms. Hassett.
I guess, is this NICE? Is that the certification acronym spelling?
I don't know, I've used that word a couple times during the process of certification.
Is this something just your campus is doing? Is Polzer considering doing it too?
So we will roll out Polzer in this same process next school year.
I'm hoping to ask for new teachers.
And I just have
Ask while you
another
have an
quick
audience.
question. The National Institute for STEM Education, this certification process, does the relationship with that institute, does that end at that point, or is it a continuing support that you receive from them?
It's a 3-year.
3 years, okay.
This-
And I can And so Lori Crenshaw is like the go-to person at STEM Institute. She also works like in a coach model, so like I've talked to her on numerous times. But she helps me understand like where. Where we're going to celebrate.
Mr. Miller?
Michelle, this is really good stuff. I know you were excited last year when we had that. A lot of folks went to Colorado last year for NSB, and so I went and hung out for a while. We stayed late and talked, your husband and I and some others, and Julie, I think. Really learned a lot just about how they track, kids coming in and out. But you mentioned 25 teachers got certified. Did you have any teachers that say, hey, listen, I really want to be a ELA, dual language, I'm making this up, coach? That's a teacher. That's what I want to do. It's what my passion is, 2nd grade. Can I go to another school?
No, I've not had anybody ask to go to a different school at this point. Now, did I have a few that were a little weary about the certification? Yes, especially in myself.
Okay.
To get an idea. So, it is.
We're out of time, but, so just because someone was in special ed, you found a way to let them be in STEAM. STEAM's for STEM.
It's for everybody.
I added the A there. You saw what I did, right?
I know, my
That was a
architectural
circan.
looking for it.
Yeah. You found a way for it
Yes.
to work, and it's working, and it's going to be great to see what it does for kids like that, because that's some of those kids are going to flourish in that.
And they have them. I mean, we've
Great.
created STEM buckets that aren't necessarily.
It's great. Kudos to all of you for that. Thank you for getting this going. This is the beginning of a lot of great things in LISD. I really believe that.
Totally agree, and I appreciate you guys having the foresight to move forward.
Action.
Any other questions? Dr. Ruggers?
Okay. We're ready for, to talk about the Collegiate Academy at the Colony High School, so. Ms.
Good
Monya?
evening. We will start with a video as we get ready for our second cohort. We wanted to give you a little bit of insight into what our first cohort is doing.
And what we do.
Collegiate Academy is a great opportunity for students to get started on their college early. So you're able to take college classes every semester on top of your regular high school classes.
The classes for the Collegiate Academy are dual credit classes. So it's still within the high school. The professors from Collin College come to us, and so they learn within the walls of the high school still.
So all the classes that you're going to take through the Collegiate Academy are going to transfer to Texas public universities as well. Some of them might also transfer out of state, but that's something that we would need to look into once you're ready to start looking. We have a 4-year plan for our students that's a track that they'll get an associate's degree if they follow that track by the end of it. We want kids to be able to also participate in sports and electives and all of those options as well. So if it doesn't always fit into your schedule, the collegiate classes, we have other options for you to take classes to still get that associate's by the time you're a senior. And those can include anywhere from online classes to taking them in the summer at Collins. So we have lots of options for kids, and we hope that the end goal for the most of our kids is to get that associate's degree the same time that they get their high school diploma.
What I do is I check in with the kids, make sure they're doing okay, make sure they're on top of their grades. So every 2 or 3 weeks I do a grade check, and we get in touch with their parents, let them know how they're doing. Also just for emotional support, if they have any problems or questions, they come to me first. Every other Friday they come to me, and so I usually have team building activities for them to do. And so I just usually get to spend time with them, making sure they end their week on a good note, and just trying to make sure they're feeling okay about the Collegiate Academy.
I'm the Collegiate Academy counselor, and so I help students register through Collin, set up their classes and their schedules, make sure that they can get into as many TC activities as possible, electives, sports, all that kind of stuff. And then I also support them academically if they're going through things that they need help in the classes or, at home, things like that. I also act as just their school counselor as well. They've also provided us with a counselor from Collin College that helps us to talk about college, to talk about scholarships. We're going to go on field trips to different colleges. We'll do some college visits. We're going to have guest speakers that come in and talk about careers and college, ideas. We plan to have a lot of different things that are going to happen with the Collegiate Academy.
They learn work ethic, the expectations of a professor, learning how to use their time wisely.
It's really interesting, and I really liked it, and I really got hooked. And Dr. Jones was really nice, and she tried to make us feel welcome. She understood that we were freshmen, and so she took us through the process, and, she made me feel comfortable and, that I could do this, that I could give it a shot and, see how things work out.
You're going to learn a lot of life skills that are going to help you be prepared for when you do go to college or when you do go to trade school or you do get out into the workforce. You're going to have skills that you're going to learn here your freshman, sophomore, senior year that, are going to live with you forever.
So they learn how to interact. They know how to ask for help. We talk about life lessons such as what's a credit card used for, what's banking. We learn about what are the strategies they're using in class. And so I'm there to help them be successful not only in the classroom but outside the classroom as well.
They've learned how to be self-motivated, they've learned how to self-advocate, they've learned time management skills, that it is important to be able to spread out stuff, to not work on everything at the last minute. And so they've really grown, I think, in just a few short months to become pretty responsible college kids. So.
Some of the things you're going to notice with your kids is how they're going to mature as a student. With the higher expectations and all this accountability, it forces them to get things done and use their time wisely. I've seen my son and my daughter grow so much because of this. The fact that our kids can get an associate's degree at high school is a wonderful opportunity here at LISD and the Colony High School. And my son and daughter, yes, they will qualify. They will get their associate's degree while they're in high school, and it is an amazing thing.
The district purchases books for every class, which is a huge money-saving opportunity for parents and for students, because as many parents will know, that once you get to college, sometimes your books can add up very quickly. So LISD providing that support is a huge benefit in itself as well.
I am tens of thousands of dollars in debt because I did not have a program like this when I was in college. Like I went straight to a university. I started taking out student loans, and so I wish I had this opportunity when I was in high school. And so we set them up with scholarship opportunities. There's this program on the internet called Raise.me, so it's very user friendly. They just go in, enter information into classes, like grades they made in their classes. And right away it tells them, you are eligible for this scholarship, you're eligible for this scholarship. And so just getting them in touch with scholarships and all that stuff. So it's been good.
The classes are difficult and you do have to study. But in the end, it's really interesting because you're not like everybody else. You're doing college and you're going to high school. You're making it like you're giving yourself a challenge, and it's totally worth it in the end if you see the end results.
They're going to have a lot of different opportunities in the Collegiate Academy that a typical high school student might not, like going on college visits or getting the college credits that they have, having college professors come in. And so they are going to be really self-motivated from a very early age. It's not going to be, I'm waiting till I'm a junior and senior and starting to think about college. You're starting to think about it at the end of your 8th grade year and then really getting into it starting your freshman year. So by the time you become a senior, you're ready to go. You're ready for college. You're going to go to college hopefully as a junior with your associate's degree, and you're going to know all the things that you need to do, so it's going to be a really easy transition to college at that point.
Well, the Collegiate Academy kids, they're very self-disciplined for sure. That's one of my main things I noticed. They're also very responsible in their learning. They're very active in their learning, so they're always trying to take things to the next step.
I still get to do everything that I love and enjoy. It's just I need to make sure that I do my classwork earlier and get all that done so I can do everything I want to do.
They're not just academically smart. They're well-rounded people.
I think that transition going from high school to university is just going to be, it's going to be so painless, and that's, you can't put a price tag on that.
My kids come home and they're just so happy with this opportunity, and the work is there. They're going to work. They're taking a college class, so you have the workload of a college class, but they're up to the challenge. Your kids will be up to the challenge as well once they understand that this is going to help them out so much. Your kids are going to love it.
As you can see, our two Collegiate Academy advisors are very relatable to our students. Yeah. So they're really, really great. They have enjoyed jumping in and being a part of this. So what Dr. Coburn is passing out to you now is just a sample for your plan. When we were able to get together with parents at each of our 5 parent interest nights for our second cohort, we provided this to them so they had a little bit of an idea if in fact their student were to achieve that associate's degree, what that 4-year plan would look like. And so we've got a side-by-side, if you will. We've got the graduation requirements for the Foundation High School program, and then we also have how that pairs with the call-in requirements. So we have left in there, of course, any of the opportunities they would want to select for those high school electives. And that could be something like their athletics or fine arts and those pieces.
And one of the things written in your board item, it talks about a memorandum of understanding, which is, a step in this process of making sure that this is really what you want to do, and us trying to make sure kids and families are educated. You can see here, there is an opportunity for a student to be able to have that high school experience they talked about on the video and be able to get that associate's degree. But there's not a lot of space. So one of the challenges for our counselors, Ms. Trahan and Mr. Baxter and his team, is to help students understand the give and take that comes beyond that. That absolutely, you can play basketball or you can play violin for 4 years. There's no question about it. But it becomes difficult to do too many of those things and get all the way to the associate's degree. And they're doing a great job in explaining all those options to students.
This is a little bit of a reflection on our past timeline and where we are now. So we were able to open the applications and have them due before we left for winter break. We also had all of the parent presentations completed at that point. From there, we reviewed those applications with criteria such as what was the rigor of their classes, what were their grades, what were any of their assessments, what were their participatory activities on their campuses, any positive or negative behavior choices. And then we sent out eligibility emails to our applicants that, yes, you have been moved to the next step. And the next step was to, per a Collin College requirement, take the TSI test, which is the Texas Success Initiative, which is a requirement for entrance into Collin. So we completed that the last 2 weeks of January on all of our 15 middle school campuses with any of our eligible applicants. And then we are in the process now of reviewing those final pieces and will be set to release our offers of acceptance in February 13th. So we're really excited about that. So this is a breakdown of our students that were eligible by feeder. So if you'll notice that, of course, our richest applicants came from the Colony feeder, and then our other high schools are represented there as well. A little bit further of a drill down is by actual middle school. And so the only middle school not represented here on the chart for statistical relevance was Briar Hill, and they had 3 applicants that were eligible. But other than that, this breaks down by each middle school those eligible applicants as we were reviewing those candidates. Any questions?
We'll start the same, Ms. Brosnick.
I have a couple. First, I'm so excited for this program, and I'm glad we have a year to look back on it. So my question is, what have we learned in our first year of doing this that we're changing for this new class of cohorts? And that's my first question.
Baxter.
First year has been a great year, and everyone's doing this for the first time. So,
right.
Like you said and alluded to, it's been a process. So, one of the things that we have changed in the application process itself is the TSI testing is taking place now up front. Okay, the current cohort is taking TSI testing now. Okay, so some of those students are not ready for their spring course just yet because they're still lacking some of that TSI testing. So we feel like starting this in the application process itself is going to benefit greatly. A lot of the other things have just been logistical items that we might want to do a little bit different. Some of our work with our cohorts on their collegiate Friday day, some of how we want to structure some of their study sessions, that sort of thing. So just some semantics and that sort of thing. Our relationship with Collin has remained very steady through the process. They've been great partners with us, and partnership is remained.
Do we have any students that started but have left the program?
So the statistics for us have been really great. We started out with 125 in the that were accepted last spring. 2 students dropped out before the program started, just due to family circumstances, that sort of thing. Through the fall semester, we only had 1 student drop out of the program. So it's really been a strong start. And the other statistic we're really celebrating is that the group that completed their first college class in the fall, that 123, they had a 97% passing rate on their first. Strong start for this group.
Impressive.
What was the range? Could you tell us the ranges on that? What was the ranges of that scoring? 97% passed. Scores from a C to a B plus.
Yeah, I
It's
don't
all over
have
the place.
that. In front
I mean,
of me.
97% passing the first go around. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Good thing they didn't have me. Would have taken it down.
Ms. Hassett?
TSI. So you did delay the TSI. I remember one time us talking, it was also because Algebra 2 is on the TSI, and you were afraid that the 8th graders weren't yet ready for Algebra 2. So we don't have a concern right now of making them take that in 8th grade.
One thing that changed was between cohort 1 and cohort 2 was the requirement by Colin to have that done prior to admission. We got a little bit of a grace period in getting that cohort 1 off the ground. Yes, we'll let them kind of take that TSI after we get them in there. And so for the second cohort, we had to have that administered. And I will say, as we're in the process of reviewing those scores, we're not completed yet, but I'm thrilled at how successful they are being.
Are you allowing retakes if someone wants to retake the TSI because they think they can do it better because they were weak in an area?
So as Dr. Rogers' vision, we certainly don't want to put a kid in a bucket for just a score on that test and make that the only thing. So we have some kids that not necessarily have met that threshold yet, and there will absolutely be a retest opportunity to make sure they have the opportunity to, increase those and show us what they have at that point too.
Awesome. And then you took my question too about, which is great, about how our students are doing right now. So 97% passing rate, which is awesome. So kudos to those kids. What about those 3% who didn't pass? I mean, they don't get. How can they stay on track to get an associate's degree if they didn't pass that college course?
So we have a detailed process in place with that group for this. Involves a lot of contact with the parent, a lot of meetings on our part, some meetings. We have the devoted Colin counselor that works with our kids basis as well. Student needs to be in a pause for a semester, then they'll pause from taking some college classes, back on track, and then be.
But we don't really allow them to retake a course. I mean, how will that even? They don't have enough college credit hours. How does that work? If they fail the course, and it's already a tight schedule, so they might already have to take summer hours. How do we get them?
There's a little bit of latitude in the campus schedule for them to redo something there, but yes, we would have to look at an online option or a summer option to recover those hours.
And Ms. Hassett, just a reminder, I think what the parents and the students signed too is, while we'd love for all of them to end up with an associate's degree,
right?
Our ultimate goal is that they at least end up with 36 hours.
Which is, I totally agree.
So they can miss one or two and still get back on track and at least, leave with 36 hours of college credit, which is a big deal.
But there's a plan to help those students try when they have missed a mark.
Absolutely.
Ms. Timish?
Yes, thank you. With all the excitement, and I know this has been an amazing program, a lot of family friends in the colony that love it, and some that have really regretted not putting their kids into it. Is there any pushback from parents, like wanting to see if their kids are currently in the colony, they can jump in as a sophomore? Has that been any conversation? I know that was not the plan, but some of these look like they could still squeeze them in.
Education just this spring, Anya's department has really been strong to all the schools. Ninth graders asking about moving
Jumping
into
in.
the sophomore year. That was not part of the communication.
It's a great follow-up to your question that we have robust dual credit programs at all of our high schools, including students at the Colony High School who are not in the Collegiate Academy. They have opportunities to earn very close to, if not all the way to, that 36 hours and even beyond as they get creative in how they schedule at all of our high schools. And so I think one of the things we our messaging to all of our students is there are lots of dual credit opportunities, and some of the decisions you have made are going to make it easier, you as a board have made, are going to make it easier for kids to take advantage of dual credit opportunities down the road. So we're excited about the future of dual credit throughout the district.
I agree, because it's hard sometimes as an 8th grade parent, you know, to visualize that, so I appreciate that. And then, has there been any issues with just us being on a different schedule than Colin? Has there been anything that we've had to work around or that we're looking to do differently next year?
That is where the real strong partnership with them has come in. There was a gap where we still had a week left in our semester, and they were starting a new semester, but they were on track. So that those scheduling issues has not been an issue. Partnership with them and working together. A lot of that is in that learning curve the first time you're doing something like this too, because you realize things as you're going through a calendar and as you're going through the year. Staying in constant contact with them and them with us.
They were very willing to help us with content for that week. We put a lot of rich things in a Google Classroom to allow our campus to be able to still get those kids something in that week that was not just not a valuable experience. So they were very, very eager to help us out with those pieces.
Oh, that's great to hear. Thank you.
Ms. Sells?
And just following up on that, with the change in our calendar coming up this next year, are we already having those discussions now? Because, as you know, we'll go back after the first of the year, and most of the colleges don't start for a period of time. So we'll be still working with that.
Absolutely. That actually works to our advantage this year, especially with our second cohort, because we're going to be able to do a lot of our Collin College boot camp with our kiddos when they come in before their actual classes start. And so we already are in discussions with them, looking at our calendars, how they overlap, and any pieces we need to fill in.
Great. And this cohort, number-wise, are we looking same number of students? Are we reassessing that?
So our goal for our second cohort is about 200 students.
About 200 students. And then cost-wise, are we seeing an increase in cost for the parents?
So what Colin is committed to and what we put in all of our parent presentation is certainly our students that are eligible for free and reduced lunch have an opportunity for some tuition waivers. And so our commitment to paying for textbooks, our student outside of those services are looking at a total cost for an associate's degree of nothing beyond $5,000.
So you mentioned for some students, particularly if they're involved in extracurriculars, that they may have to do some online or summer options. Do we still pay for textbooks if they do that? If they're not taking it within our school day?
We do not. So our commitment, and we made that clear to parents, is that we provide textbooks for classes that are taught on the Colony campus.
Okay. And then my last question is just about transportation as we provide the STEM academies as well. How are we handling that, or do we have a plan?
So we do have, we are going to offer transportation to the Collegiate Academy for our students that transfer in. And once we determine the geographical region for where our accepted students are coming from, we're going to operate off a hub system. And so we'll be working with Michael Brassfield and First Student to get those hubs set up and communicate that out to our parents. We will, however, provide transportation before or after school for extracurriculars, and we make sure our parents understand that when we get into our MOU with them.
So the hub system, parents are going to have to get them to that spot. That's right. And then it won't be door to door.
Right. And so, I just lost my question. Must have been really important.
Can I piggyback on that just real quick? Are we going to ask first if they want bus service?
Certainly, if they are wanting or willing to drive over there, we're going to make it an option.
I'm just asking if we're going
definitely.
to ask, do you want bus service before we start providing a hub and sending an empty bus?
Yeah, we're not going
to wait.
We're not going to be sending empty buses.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
I remember my question. Okay, so when students outside of the Colony feeder choose
They do.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's it.
Mr. Millen? Oh.
When those students come from outside the Colony feeder pattern, or Colony, are you talking about outside of LISD too? We only take kids within LISD today. We could think in the future about expanding that, but let's save that for another day. I think Ms. Sheffield asked a question about the busing service. I'm confused. Are students taking classes today?
We have two cohorts, so we have existing.
Oh, in the colony. So this graphic here.
Those are for our students that are
That's
applying
for
for
next
next
year.
year, our
Oh,
second
applying for
cohort.
next year, okay. And remind me, I think you might have said this and I missed it, why Briar Hill's not on here?
When the chart populated, it was not considered statistically relevant, but there are 3 students from Briar Hill that applied.
Okay. I'll make sure Mr. Mattingly knows that.
Sure.
I'm sure that'll make him feel good. Dr. Coburn, you mentioned a situation where, let's say, a student is in the band and then is in baseball. Now, I just gave you 2 things that are at different times of the year, but certainly could be something more. Band, I think, would like for their students, drumline, et cetera, to be through the entire year. How are we, I mean, I guess I know we'll accommodate it. Is at some point, parents have to say, you know what, if the objective is this dual credit education, we recommend you go down that path.
In a manner of speaking, yes. They've committed to the 36 hours. It's not an opportunity to just transfer to the Colony High School and then say, well, I think I just want to take classes with my friend over there on the other side of campus. So the commitment to the 36 hours is there, and the path to an associate's degree is there, and it is within those 2 things where the opportunity to be flexible for a student exists. The 36 hours, though, when you look at the side-by-side with where they get the credit from Collin and where they get the high school credit, is not dissimilar from sitting down with a student at any of our high schools and saying, here are the 22 credits you need to graduate, period. And you don't have any flexibility. You've got to take X number of math, science, language arts, and so on. So that process is really not very different for one of those students, but we do expect them to honor that commitment to 36 hours that they sign in that MOU.
Okay, thank you. The college classes fit into our block schedule. We had a little bit of conversation about this. When they start at the beginning of the semester versus where we start and where they end, how do you handle the logistics of all that?
Handle that differently, and as they get older, age appropriate to with the first group, anytime that they have a gap in the college course ending and the next semester starting, then they are devoted to a study opportunity with a staff member present at all times, taking roll, that sort of thing. So that is one way that we handle that. As they get older and as they become juniors and seniors, potentially there will be a little bit less structure to that, always an attendance mechanism, but a way that they can do more learning on their own. We're looking at building some basically lounge type areas in front of our library that'll be kind of like college settings, like if you go to a real college, where they can have more flexibility in where they go and what they do.
Great, thank you, Tim. Just 2 questions here. They still have to take the test. So I don't need to know this tonight, but I'd be curious, for me to kind of see how this looks pictorially, like, schedules, when they're in a regular class, when they're in this, how they focus on a class that has TEKS and will be tested against it as it relates to the state assessment, and also balance that with this kind of prima donna that I'm in college, right? But I still got to take the test. How that works out is, I'm curious. I mean, is it? Would you say it's just really smooth today, not a problem, or would you say we're kind of, we're working it out?
Our experience so far has been that it's been very smooth. Keeping an eye on that and having those discussions. The reality of them taking the test and how that looks moving forward, especially as the group continues through the process after their freshman year and on through, and definitely having those discussions.
Yeah, and we've definitely seen, since we've had dual credit prior to Collegiate Academy, students that are in U.S. history, which is, a heavily tested area, they've been successful from the dual credit and U.S. history EOC perspectives.
Okay.
And these kids are still getting a report card from the Colony High School. They're getting one from Collin also, but they know every 9 weeks that they're a student at the Colony High School.
No, that's great. And I kind of expected Tim would have said, hey, Tracy, I got it under control. Don't worry about it. I'm going to close with this. I kind of heard this when your what do you call them, the people from Colin and the dad were talking about. I felt some Avidisms. Now, I'm not going to go down the path of Avid in a big way, so trustees don't roll your eyes. What I'm thinking is that what I heard was some of the same great qualities that come from being in an Avid program, helping do my resume, helping me get ready for the next level. And I think Joe or Dr. Rogers made a great point about, even at the high school level, we have dual credit programs and we have AP programs, and maybe to some degree we could create a dual credit academy that just says, hey, if you're at Marcus High School, if you're at Hebron High School, if you did this, you also could come out with close to a college degree. And maybe some parents are thinking about that for kids. I wasn't. Okay, if I take this, and make sure I take the test and pay for the test that they have to pass the AP class, I'll have 47 credits when I get out. I don't know. But it just made me think about what I feel like the great benefits are in Avid, which is a structure or infrastructure or framework around students getting ready for the collegiate level, because that's what Avid's doing. And the speakers here unknowingly teed that up, that they're helping facilitate that. So that then changed my mind about, well, do we have to have Avid in every campus? Maybe we have something like this. Stop. Maybe something like this that's a whole different thing. You guys don't need to worry about that. This is awesome. And there may be pieces and parts of this that could be applied not in a formal academy environment, but at a Hebron or a Marcus or a Flowermount, where that kind of person helping facilitate those things would be. And all I have to liken it to today is Avid until I heard this. So this, again, I think this is great. No students from outside yet, right?
No. That's an LISD.
LISD. But the intent is to do that at some point, or not.
Yeah, I think there's certainly the possibility. I wouldn't want to turn away current LISD students,
right.
Until we have the capacity to make sure we can take care of as many that qualify and want to get in. So that's sort of the juggling act we'll have to.
Maybe phase 3 or 4, but again, something that makes education in LISD and the options that we have an attractive thing for families to want to be here.
Yeah.
Bells, did you have another question?
No, I was just curious to know. It says hub pickup and drop-off locations will be determined based on the location of.
Yes, so my sentence there was not quite complete. I apologize for that. But it will be determined based on, once we look at the enrollees and we see where their addresses fall and where would that make sense to put those hubs. Okay. Yes, I failed that sentence
I was going to be
test.
thinking of that all night long.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we solved it.
Catherine, the
Trying
English.
to think your brain.
I just had a few questions. One is there a designated counselor for the academy? I mean, she seemed to be in all the videos. Is she the designated person for all of those kids?
She handles all of those students and all of their experience, and so that's a factor. One of the things I wanted to add to something that Mr. Miller was saying. I think, if anything, the key to the success of this first group so far has been what we call Collegiate Fridays, and it's every other Friday they are with those two advisors that you saw, and I promise they're old enough to drive. Those two, they've really been a key to success for them, because that is where they're getting the experience of the applications, the staying on top already of looking at scholarship opportunities for their future, learning study skills. They're all going on a field trip to Collin this Friday to get the real college experience. And so those two have been real integral in that. And really our philosophy with that has been make sure those students feel like they end every week well, because they're going through an experience that they're college students, but they're also freshmen in high school. And so make sure they end each week feeling like they got something out of that week and that they're moving forward and not backwards. So that's been a real key.
My other question is, who pays for the TSI testing?
The students do.
The students do? Okay. And then I really like that app that I saw. I wish I
No
would have
doubt.
known about that with my own students. So my question is, do the other high schools use that app or whatever?
It's definitely something, and they're advising with any of their students that they use as a scholarship-seeking opportunity.
Okay, so I need to note to self, ask my son about that. Okay, so,
Just get it from one.
yeah, so my last question is, I think this was, well, no, two more questions actually. How do you juggle, and I think it's kind of been brought up, those that, we're very much the board is advocates of the fine arts, sports, all that for our students too, to enrich them. Do they have issues or challenges because they can't fit that schedule and then they're being thrown out of that opportunity for that?
So I think two keys on this. One has been the counseling department has met with every one of the students in this cohort so far to develop a 4-year plan. So they already know really what they're looking at, possible decisions made. Another thing that's helping us next year is that Colin is committing to offering us dual credit throughout the school day. So it's going to be all 4 periods. And so that's going to help with some of that and help allow these students to continue to do more and more for as long as possible, because they'll have more flexibility during the school day on when those things are offered compared to their athletics, fine arts, etc. So that's helping a lot with that.
That's great. My last question is scholarships that are provided for students. Sometimes they're only for first-year students. So how is that affecting these students on obtaining some scholarships for colleges?
So one of the things that Colin has committed to is scholarship opportunities for those who need it. So there are some certainly that are applicable to a particular candidate who may be first-generation college or something like that, but they have invited us to bring forward any student or family that is in need and they want to work with them. So they specialize a lot of things to help our students get in and be able to take advantage of this opportunity.
Okay, I'm talking about like going on, like to another 4-year. How
and so-
is that being affected? Because then they're already associates, so they're not a first-year student.
Right, and so that is something that with the college advisor that we have available to our campus from Colin, they start that process very early so that they're able to seek those pieces and see how they can make sure they get what they need as well, scholarship-wise.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay, great.
I have one more question.
That's it.
What about the mentality of these kids? I mean, because they're coming in as 8th graders, and we've seen a lot of sad stories about children who are pressured. So how is the first cohort group doing mentally? And do we make sure that these kids who probably have a little extra pressure than your average 9th grader, they have that, they know they can go to counseling when they're stressed, and how are we making sure that they're well-rounded and safe and secure?
I think a lot of it, and I'll let Monty back on this too, a lot of it has to do with the fact that the counselor that we have with them works with that group of students. Also have the Colin counselor that works with them as well. And then I think a lot also just goes back to that approach I was alluding to earlier on Collegiate Fridays. Those advisors, not just when they're with them as a group, but they're checking on them individually, checking on their grades, checking on how they're doing. So we really have 4 different people that are working, not just academically, but social, emotional.
And I will say, I won't use the word helicopter, I will say we hover a little bit over them, making sure that we're aware of what they're facing, and that is new territory for them. And so we're richly involving them and the parents. They are only taking 2 classes this first year, and they are not necessarily as content heavy as some of our cores. So we start them out with our business information systems and speech and psychology. So we try to get them to take it a little bit of a dipping their toe in the pool versus launching them into something hardcore. So we definitely are aware of all of those well-rounded pieces we want to pay attention to.
I've got one
Mr. Miller.
last, which is just, so we're getting ready for college. It's awesome. They got a lot going on. What are we doing to prepare the universities for a 200 kids coming out in the class of 2021, right? Really would like you guys to take a look at them. They're going to be a little younger, but they're going to be about at a sophomore level. Maybe kind of some pre-conversations with them about young kids at that level, and then maybe they have some experiences about students like that. And I know the kid has to be so old when they get the credits, right? You can't be 19 and a sophomore or something. We talked about that, right?
a sophomore and be 30 years old. I mean,
Well, no, I'm thinking the opposite, being a sophomore and being 16 years old. I thought there was an issue with that, Dr. Rogers, where, no.
They can get
freshmen,
credit.
our current
And there's a
14,
lot of
15-year-old.
early college high schools, not only across Texas, but so I think the universities will take their money no matter what.
Okay, so as long as the system is set up, it'll take them and no problem, and, you know. Thank you.
Ms. Crow, would you advance one slide for me? So really quickly, just to end it up, there's next steps for academies. This is not the end of the conversation. We're talking about pre-K expansion in the form of a pre-K academy at 3 locations. We're considering Liberty, Hebron Valley, and Valley Ridge, where pre-K students would be provided access to music, art, PE, and STEM. We've got to reconvene our academy groups by level to explore what further opportunities do we do beyond what we have, and have recommendations for those future academies by September of 2018. And then we need to make the decision about the middle school STEM academy approach by the end of the 2018-19 school year. So thank you so much for being here. We're excited about next steps. Thank y'all for charting the waters. We really appreciate it.
by the way, can we congratulate, it's Dr. Baxter now, am I correct?
Oh, yeah, almost.
Almost, sorry.
February 26th.
Almost Dr. Green, Dr. Wooten, and Dr. Baxter.
Wow. Congrats. Almost.
Awesome. Thank y'all. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Who's next? Are we ready? Who's the next one?
Are you it?
Where's Michelle?
So we're going to switch gears and move into our next topic, which is new possibilities of programs at the new Career Center. And Karen Seeley and Adrian Moreno are here to walk us through a lot of the research that they've done and some possibilities they're exploring.
All right. Thank you for the time tonight to update you on the research that we've done.
And you have this PowerPoint in your folders too.
Of course we do.
Adrian and I do appreciate the time tonight to update you on the research that we've done around the possibilities for new programs. Research really began this fall and was really conducted through some site visits, of course, offering analysis and a survey to middle school parents and students. We took a large group of staff members, visited career centers in Frisco, Garland, Grapevine, Colleyville, Arlington, and Newman Smith High School in Carrollton College Branch. We also visited business leaders and representatives from other airlines and from Soul Cadillac to learn more about industry-specific needs. Course information was gathered from area districts, as well as districts that had standalone centers that were similar to ours. To gather information from our community, launched a program interest survey in December that was sent to all of our. Had a total of 458 responses to our survey. When we asked parents and students which of the following programs that our middle school students and parents would like to see offered in high school, these were the results. Topping the list was our veterinary assistant, with 58% of responses in support of that type of new program, followed closely by cybersecurity. We also had significant interest in aircraft maintenance, building trades, firefighter EMT program, and Cisco systems. We also had interest in phlebotomy technician, political science, and barbering as well.
Bless you.
All right. With the information we gathered from the site visits and from the survey, we then really kind of took a much broader look and kind of thought through these particular lenses. What is the projected employability in this particular area? What does the job market look like? What is the growth potential in this particular program? What certifications might be available in this field? And how might they be recognized? Are those certifications part of the new accountability system, as part of the college career military readiness? Are they recognized as part of the federal Perkins grant? Are they recognized and valued in the industry? Kind of thought through what partnerships are both required and hold great possibility in our own community. Looked at How do these courses in the program fit together and complement our existing programs? And then finally, competition. How would this program help to provide a competitive advantage to our programs?
So when we took all that information into consideration, we looked at the programs we currently offer at Del Jackson and the ones that we recommend that these programs continue on, and we move them into the new career center as well. So auto collision, audio video production, computer maintenance, cosmetology, education and training. There's an opportunity with the education and training program to join up with the Grow Your Own program, and we've been talking with Mr. Bonner's or Dr. Bonner's office about how we can get our education and training students involved in our ESD program. So how we can enhance that program and how all that's going to look, we're not 100% sure. There's still some discussion on that, but we know we want to carry on with this program, making sure it's available to students in all high schools. The health science program is it's very popular right now with all our students, and what is offered at Del Jackson is the Health Science 1, clinical rotations, and medical assisting. So we recommend that carries on, as well as law enforcement, the forensics and criminal investigations of the part we do over there currently, and then our manufacturing engineering, our mill and cabinet program, and welding as well. So those are programs we currently offer that we want to see continuing on. So then we look at new possibilities, and one of the points of the new possibilities is a district-wide agricultural science program. And through our agricultural science, there's kind of three different pathways that kind of intermingle a bit, but they're a little more straight line. You have your animal science, so we would continue with our standard offerings that we provide in animal science, but we would also like to add a veterinary assistant program. And then through our horticulture program, we continue with our standard offerings, what we're currently doing now, but expand our floral design to go from the level 1 on into the level 2 and provide both levels of that certification, and then continue with the ag mechanics and our standard offerings. And a side note, we have a new calf that was born about 6 hours ago at the barn. So we have a little baby calf who was born this afternoon. And he's up walking around. A culinary arts program we currently offer at the Colony High School. Make it a district-wide program. So we would like to see our program, if possible, with a full-service restaurant with a grab-and-go coffee bar. To meet those needs, we need an instructional kitchen, a working kitchen, classroom space. Some of the career centers we visited, they have different variations of this type of setup, and we've kind of taken the parts we like the best out of all of them and say this is what would work well for us or what we think would be great. And then this will give us an opportunity to incorporate our hospitality program into that culinary arts. And then with the floral design, with the expansion we want to do with that program, there's a connection to our culinary arts program where we could use the floral design to help with the displays, centerpieces, that type of stuff should our culinary program be doing any catering. So we see a connection to cross over multiple disciplines. Another area of possibility is building trades. Our business advisory committee has been kind of pushing for this. Our committee, we think we should go with more of a specific focus as opposed to a general construction trades. We think we should settle on certain, specific trades, whether it's HVAC, plumbing, electrical, masonry. Those are just some examples. There's others that we could choose from. There is opportunities through the National Council on Construction Education and Research for certification. There's partnership opportunities that are out there, and how whichever discipline we decide on, how that would actually structure out and work depends on these partnerships, because there are opportunities with businesses out there that are looking for our students to get a handle on them early into these trades and how they can progress them forward into their industry. And then another opportunity that we investigated is through the International Code Council, which would allow our students not only to become certified in a particular discipline, but would also provide them the opportunity to be certified as an inspector. Because as the construction trades, the need is increasing for construction trades, and with all the construction and building going on in the area, there is a need for inspectors as well. So we're trying to explore every avenue that we could possibly give our kids an advantage. In cybersecurity, there is a TEA recognized innovative course currently online. We're anticipating more courses becoming available in the future, but we could tie this program into our current computer maintenance and our computer networking courses that we are currently providing. And the need is huge for cybersecurity. I think Mr. Colbeck would agree with us that there is a shortage of cybersecurity specialists out there right now. About 40% of them are coming out of the military, so there's about 60% that are having to come out of the private sector, and there is not enough to meet the need within our state, much less our nation. So if we can get a program up and running in this particular area, the employment opportunities for our students they're pretty great. In aircraft maintenance and aircraft mechanics, this is a program that we have been investigating. We've met with American Airlines. I have a meeting tomorrow with Southwest Airlines. We've talked to FAA inspectors in how we can develop a program. It's going to be a challenge, and to properly say today that this is what it would take to put this program in, we're not comfortable with that we are ready to make that commitment to put the program in the Career Center, the new one coming up, but we think we would have all the information that we would need to reconsider this for the expansion of Career Center East later on. It's going to be an extensive process to get this program up and running and to become a certified FAA training site. We kind of went through something similar to this with our NATEF. To do FAA would be much more of a challenge, but we can meet that challenge. It's going to be, we need a little more time to investigate and to do the research so we can properly put this one in place. And so in summary, the programs that are potential programs based on our research is a culinary program tied into our hospitality, a district-wide agricultural science program allowing all 5 high schools to have access to the program with the addition of a veterinary assistant program, as well as expanding our floral design opportunities. A building trades program with specific trades that we will determine. I think based on the space, we're kind of considering it's possible we could put 2 trades in there. And then a cybersecurity program. And then the request for aircraft maintenance, we're requesting time to do some further study and research. That's the end of the presentation, so we'll entertain questions.
Ms. Prosnick.
You know I've got a couple. First of all, I guess I'm surprised with possibility after new program for agricultural science, because in our bond that passed, it did have for an expansion of the barn. So I just thought the two went hand in hand.
The veterinary assistant is really the possibility. The ag science was already a done.
Just making sure.
A done deal.
Yeah, we never promised that we'd have ag at every high school or consolidated. We just think it makes sense that there's some schools that don't have the opportunity for their kids to participate, to use the opportunity to place those programs at the career centers.
Right.
For all kids, all high school students.
I was surprised to not see firefighting on here. I know we are looking at, I know we're not there whether that class is populated or not at Lewisville High School, but one of the discussions we had in curriculum and programs was that would perhaps be something that was offered at the Career Center. So.
The reason we did not put firefighter on there because we intend to offer that next year. It's going to be offered at LHS. It's in our course description guide. It is in the course cards. So since we're going to put it's going to be offered next year. We didn't want to combine it in with the possibilities for the new career center. So with the offering at LHS, hopefully it'll show to be a sustainable program. And then that would be another program be considered in the expansion of building a dedicated facility for that at Career Center East.
I'm going to have to think on that. I prefer programs that are available to all of our students across the district, and that's what I think is so great about our career centers, is that way it's available to every kid, and if it's just offered, like currently just the culinary students at the Colony High School, you have to go to the Colony High School to participate in that program. And I personally, I just like programs that are available to all of our students. I know that that's not physically available right now, but that's just personal.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ms. Prosnick. I think we need to be clear that even when we build Career Center West, they're not totally duplicate. So there will be programs that will only be at Career Center East that all students will still be able
Right.
to
I just want
attend,
all
and
students
vice
to be- right.
versa,
Yep.
from all parts of our district. So they're not going to be exact replicas of each other. And so you're absolutely right. We need to still make sure that wherever the program is, kids from all 5 high schools can get to it.
And the firefighter program is available to all students across the district. It's going to be housed at LHS, but it is offered district-wide. And once we know the students that are going to be in the program, once they have registered, we're scheduling parent meetings and getting all the information out. But once we know the students that are going to be that are interested in the program from the 5 different high schools, then we will determine how we can best meet that request as far as the time of day it's offered, and how it will be most available to all those students that are in there.
Okay, so it's going to be treated like if you will, a career center East
Yes.
or a Del Jackson
And
class.
the-
It's not going to be like the culinary.
Correct.
No.
Okay.
And that was based on the input of the curriculum and programs committee, so.
I was loud enough. Good. Okay.
First of all, can I ask a favor? Could you send over the information about Joe Davis and his new award that he got? I did forget to send it to Dr. Rogers. Joe Davis was nominated for a national award. He received the National Teacher of the Award from the woodworking. And could you send it to Dr. Rogers and Mrs. Brim?
Yes.
Because I think
you did send it to me.
I couldn't remember if I did or not. I knew I was going to.
Yeah.
I don't know if I remembered.
I think so.
But
Yes, ma'am. I'll send them.
Great
I'll
program.
send them the email that Mr. Davis received.
that would be awesome, because I think it would be a great thing to be mentioned as we're thinking about expanding the new capabilities of mill and cabinet making. Data security, is that going to be included into the cybersecurity? Is that the Cisco part, or is it really just cybersecurity? Because I know there's slightly different nuances of the security world, cybersecurity and data security. Are we going to do just cybersecurity? I mean,
Right now, we're looking at the cybersecurity and what is available through the courses that TEA has offered. Now, there's still some. I guess what we're trying to determine right now is are we going to allocate the space for the program? Now, the actual content that is involved in the program, we'll still have some time to determine exactly what it is, what level, what type of security, and what's going to take place in the class. I guess so yes, that's a possibility, I guess would be the best way to put it.
it might be part of the Cisco, because it's
Yes.
all kind of ish to me anyway, but I know there's slightly different. For the other new programs, I know I've beaten the dead horse about aerospace engineering, and I'm a little disappointed that it didn't make the cut so far, because I still do think that that's a great program for our students, especially now that we are having STEM academies. I don't see a great tie into the new career centers based on the offerings that we're going to start offering to our students at elementary. There are great, great programs for our career pathways right after high school, but I don't see a great tie-in from our STEM and engineering into more of the aerospace engineering or some of the other actual engineering courses to encourage some of the parents who might not think a CTE course is right for their child. I think we need to make sure that we have a robust offering so that they know it's not the same classes that we had when we were available. So, of course, I'm a little disappointed that it didn't make it, because I think aerospace engineering, the one that Granbury has when they made their airplane that flew, or Houston that has a great aerospace engineering program itself, there's a great way for our students not only to have the mechanics, which is a great thing to do. I mean, because there's definitely a need for those mechanics. But another version of kids who might want a different, so I'm just wondering if later on we could try to make sure that there's a really good transition between the new STEM at the elementary level all the way through to the high school level, instead of just an engineering course. And then the firefighter was my other question. I think that's it.
In regards to the engineering offerings, there's an opportunity that we'll have to make some changes to what we're offering as far as engineering at the home campus. And so there's some changes that we can make once we determine everything that will be going into the new Career Center, then how we look at the programs that are offered at the home campus, because we have the industrial tech class, but there's an opportunity to make some changes that will fall more in line with some engineering that would eventually, they could lead to the Career Center, but it would also be a separate pathway that kids that are interested in engineering but just cannot seem to fit a double block class in their schedule to come over to the Career Center would still have an opportunity to take advantage of that pathway at their home campus. So I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you completely, and I'm looking at how we can make that happen without having to put everything at the Career Center. What can we do at the home campus and make available for those students as well?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you reaching out and looking at opportunities for our future, for our students. Did you take into consideration for the new Career Center the number of students that we're turning away? For example, I heard at one of our campuses 80 students from mechanical, automobile mechanics didn't get into the class, and that's just from one high school, so I'm assuming that's duplicated. So that seems like that's a huge need. Are we adjusting the numbers potentially?
Yes, the class that has the auto mechanics, which is our auto tech, we were able to accommodate all the students. It's auto collision is the one that had the waiting list. And the new Career Center, the larger shop space and the way that is what we're designing for that would be able to accommodate more students, and hopefully we'd be able to get an additional teacher to help serve that need as well.
Yeah, because I was surprised when I just heard the number of students that we're turning away, and that. So then another question would be, I love all these. Is there going to be any staffing issues or anything that you see that we're really going to have difficulty filling?
It seems other districts seem to have a difficulty hiring some positions. We have not experienced too much of a difficulty when it comes to finding staff in some of these areas. Health science seems to be our most difficult spot to fill, and if we start, this year we had to hire a position at the beginning of this year. We lost a teacher. He left us due to a family situation, and it left us in a bind a week before we started class. But we started the first 9 weeks with a substitute, but we found the right person by going that route, and now we didn't spend one day hiring them and 187 trying to see how we can improve them. We waited, but from some of these other areas, our industry partners have offered to help us find personnel and staff that we could use from their industry that would be interested in coming and teaching our classes, and how we can tie into what they're trying to do, and what, because they see the need as well. We're talking to them about these programs and how we're trying to prepare these kids to come work for them. And so they're seeing that we're trying to work with them, then they're giving us names of people. Hey, this is somebody that's looking to get into the teaching side of things, or they've been teaching for us. Now maybe they can come work for you. So there may be some difficulties, but I think working with our partners, we're going to be able to find the people we need that are qualified and passionate about working with students, especially our age kids, and showing them the way in their industry.
So for the animal science, the veterinary assistant, the classes will not be tied to the ag barn. The kids do not have to have access or participate to take those classes?
I was speaking with Dr. Rapp about that earlier. There's multiple ways we can structure that program. We can structure it in a way, and in reality, we'll probably end up structuring it both ways, where students can can still take part in showing animals and going through the more traditional ag student would still have the opportunity to participate in the veterinary assistant program. But yet we're also looking at this veterinary assistant program as a way to draw students into CTE and our ag program that are not our traditional ag students. And so how we structure that, we're going to have to kind of, you could start here, but the goal will merge you to becoming a certified veterinary assistant.
Because that would make sense that the problem is not all of our campuses have access to the ag barn. So I just wanted to make sure that as we offer this program, that then all the campuses will still have. And then is any of the consideration, just I know that it's moving along in legislation that Texas Tech is looking at opening a large animal veterinary sciences college campus in Amarillo. Is that something that's going to be on the radar? Because that's a huge need out in West Texas. I see that as being a fit with what we're doing.
Yes. Yeah, the need for veterinary assistance, and in particular large animal veterinary assistance, is huge. You know, the small animal, dogs and cats, they're everywhere. You know, and there's opportunities all over the place for us to partner with, but we're very limited, and we see that within our ag program right now. There's one large animal vet in Denton that works with us. There's another one willing to work with us, but he's in Sunnyvale. You know, so, and they're just spread out that far. So finding large animal vets is a bit of a challenge. So if we can encourage our students that are more of our traditional ag student that is interested in going that route of large animal vets, then that will tie right into what Texas Tech is trying to do. Go Raiders.
And is that something that we're talking about with the university?
We have not had that conversation with them directly, but that is something that once we know for sure that this is the direction we're heading, then we will be discussing that with all the universities that our students may have interest in going to that offer this type of program, and how we can partner with them. Are there dual credit opportunities that we can go ahead and get a head start on? Just what is available? Here's what we're doing. How does that fit with what you're doing, and what is in the best interest of our students in getting them through there?
Thank you.
Ms. Hills.
Well, I think all of my questions have been answered. I've been crossing them off my list here. So I would just say thank you for putting the icing on the cake of an evening of showing our community what school choice within public education is all about. And that's the only thing I have to say. So thank you.
Someone just went to the advocacy institute.
So you mentioned middle school families. Why just middle school? Why did you not include high school students that are maybe already in the program? Just
We chose middle school with a opening date scheduled for 2020. These would be the students that would be coming in, that would be starting in the program from day one. Right. So that is why we targeted our middle schools.
I was just thinking that if I was in high school and if I were in the program, I maybe have an idea of, gosh, I wish this had been experience already with the career centers. Okay, so and just to clarify, the programs that you're talking about, the existing programs, that's all for the new career center, is that correct? Except for, I know you said the ones that you mentioned specifically about for the expansion of Career Center East. So the education and training, is that something similar to what, I mean, would that just be in working with ESD, or is that a full-scale teacher program like what Capel has, I think?
Yes, we currently offer the education and training program. It used to be called Ready, Set, Teach. Yes. We have it at Flower Mound and Marcus on their campus, and then we offered at Del Jackson for Hebron, the Colony, and Lewisville. Okay. And so the way that program currently works is students are, when they hit that certain level that they're prepared to go out, they're partnered with our elementary schools. And so those students are spending their mornings working alongside teachers as mentors and serving in that role. The opportunity to tie this into ESD gives us a way to enhance that program and move those kids from basically an unpaid internship to kind of a paid internship in the afternoon.
So that's just more of an expansion on what we're doing. Okay. And then for the building trades, so you mentioned that you would probably do two. How would you make those selections ultimately? Is it just based on what space you have available or the staff that you can find, or is it what's
needed locally? I mean, how do you make those decisions?
Basically, all of that, what's needed locally, and a lot of it's going to come back to the business partnerships. That because to do this correctly, we would need to become an accredited training facility, and so for us to do that, we're going to need a partnership from an industry to do that. And so we've spoken with one that's interested in partnering us from the electrical side, and so that kind of puts them at the leader in the clubhouse right now because they're willing to work with us, and they want to help us get our program up and running so we can be a pipeline to feed their student or feed our students into their workforce. And the opportunities that we're looking for with all of our partners that we've established, not only with what's coming, but some of the ones we have now, we're looking at internship possibilities. Are they paid? Are they unpaid? College reimbursement opportunities. And what we're seeing is these industries and our business partners are willing to help our students if we're training them and we're showing them that how the quality of kid that we're providing. They are more than happy to get on board and see how they can help us continue what we're working on and how it's going to benefit them.
So I have a nephew that just completed an electrical program out of Arlington. And so when he did his program to the tune of like $10,000 or something, I'm assuming that our students then will leave, I guess similar to cosmetology, right? They would be but would they then have to start an apprentice, like a formal apprenticeship following high school graduation, or would that start while they're...
If we can become an accredited training facility through NCCER, the possibility of getting a lot of the apprenticeship part could already be accomplished while in high school. And I don't remember the exact hours. Each industry is a little bit different. Right. But depending on how we can structure that program, we could get a large portion of that. And it's possible if we start them, if they start it early enough, that we could get them close to that journeyman level. And so that would be our goal, to be able to get them as far down that line as we possibly could.
Okay. It's exciting.
Yeah, this is good stuff. I think there's some things on here that make a lot of sense, and some things I'd like to explore. When you look at, it is cool to say we could do these things, aerospace engineering, right, and serve a very small population of students. And we're going to be having meetings shortly after this where we're talking about budgets that are going to be under a lot of stress. And one of the things that you have to look at in that is which programs are you going to eliminate when we start having to cut the budget. So I just want to move from kind of euphoria to, hey, there's got to be a practical element to this. So there are a few things that I have some questions. Cybersecurity. Of course, it sounds cool, right? But statistically, most companies don't hire a person for a job in cybersecurity unless they have a master's degree. So we get them excited about cybersecurity. They get some type of certification. They're really not going to get a job in that. They've got to get a college degree and probably a master to work for. The government certainly requires masters. They pay for a lot of civilians to go get their master's degree. Cybersecurity is not hey, let's have fun in a lab and play around with computers, right? There's a whole science around protecting stuff and finding bad guys. So I'm just curious, what drove us to that? What are we thinking we can get kids into companies by having this, or is this something that would create such an interest in them that they might go down a certain path?
What we can provide at the high school level is a entry-level certification through CompTIA for cybersecurity. That is what we can provide these students. What that would allow them to do is it's very basic in the cybersecurity world. Where the benefit would come from is as these students wish to, like you said, they need to continue their education. They're going to need a bachelor's degree. They're going to need a master's degree. And as these programs at the universities become more competitive to get in, because this is a lucrative industry, our students would be able to show that they've made a commitment to that field or that industry, that field of study, by coming in with a certification already. Where as opposed to someone that has shown an interest in that field as they're applying for it, our student will show commitment by having a certification already in that area, and that should we would give them an advantage into getting into these programs to continue their education and their training to carry on.
So I think that's great. I think what we need to do then is we need to really keep a close list on where do these kids go. Because if this is designed to put kids in a position to get accepted into college for those types of professions by showing a commitment, and we have 40 kids a year and only 12 go do that, it's a pretty big investment, right? Because it could be considered a cool class. It's like me taking, the DEA class or whatever's out there, the CSI class. So that's just something just to think about, right? I mean, people are hiring differently now than I think sometimes when we think this is a cool class. Political science, why would we even have that at the Career Center? Why wouldn't that be a campus-based program? Political science.
Political science?
Well, political science isn't a subset of, I'm looking at it right here.
I think political science is one of the 16
It's the only career cluster we don't currently offer.
cluster that we don't offer, so that was just an option or a choice. I think your point, Mr. Miller, is very valid. I need to be clear that probably half, if not more than half, of the classes that they take at career centers, we never intended them to be the end all be all. It's just hey, whet your appetite, get a certification or two, decide if this is something that you want to continue in trade school or college. Or
yeah, sure, and I appreciate that, and that's why I think we need to be very delicate here, right?
Sure.
In an environment where we have to tighten up things, right? Specialty classes disappear.
Absolutely.
And now, I can say that with confidence because what we just heard here tonight was things like STEM Academy and dual credit and things that are awesome that if those weren't there, some of these specialty programs. Firefighter EMT, I know we talked about that briefly. I would just say, I'm curious, I'm interested in how that's going to go. I think there's a misunderstanding. I was led to believe that agencies would hire kids out of high school with those, and even regardless of what they say on their website, even Flower Mound and Lewisville and the Colony and Highland Village won't hire anybody unless they're 21. So we're getting them a certification, but when in practice and talking to those people who we have access to, we're finding that they really don't hire anybody till 21. So again, I'm not saying we don't do it. The question is, what are we doing it for? If it's to get kids to the next level, knowing that, right, and unless we have, because I think one way to manage a lot of this is to get them to an internship, right? So if they're going to be a firefighter EMT and they finish it at, let's just say March, get them in an internship in the city of Lewisville, right? If, that type of thing. That will prove out where these kids are going to go someplace, because it's going to cost somebody $10,000, right, or so? Wasn't that the number thrown out? $5?
Yeah, a little less than 5.
And is it us or the parents?
No, it's not us.
The parents, yeah. So it's, they could get into it and realize if they're not hired till 21, maybe I'll wait and see, because even kids that are 18 and 19 change directions in college, right? So just something I think we should watch. The Cisco, basically you're talking about getting a CCNA, something like that. Would they hire a kid that doesn't have a college degree that's certified, right? Maybe they would. Maybe Cisco. We have Cisco executives live in our neighborhood. I think we had one on the technology committee, maybe, at least in different fashions. Would they take them, right? They've got a place over in Plano off of Waterview Park, maybe. We could see what they could do. I just want to make sure that when the kids go do this, that there's no missed expectations. The expectation is we're giving you something that differentiates you, but if you think that you're going to walk in as a cybersecurity guy at 18 working on a defense contract, right, to protect those drones over Afghanistan, it's probably not going to happen. But wouldn't it be cool to be certified in cybersecurity at 19? I get that. But I think we really got to track these, and again, it depends on where we go with the budget, look at what happens with the budget, what programs we have. Barbering, of course, awesome. Probably should have that in every campus, and then you can get kids could get free cuts, right? I mean, what better way to do it? And probably be a little creativity that they have it in that. And then political science, we talked about that. I love this phlebotomy technician, drawn blood, right? There's a girl that works for Dr. Glacier. She graduated from Flower Mound High School, didn't know what she wanted to do. She starts working up at the front desk, and she says, I said, don't you know we had this thing in the career centers? Oh, I didn't even know it, right? So, I mean, I don't know why she didn't know it, but there are some pretty good options there. And I think there's another one, X-ray, that you can even get, right?
EKG is another one that we're currently exploring. There's some new training programs that are coming out that we could possibly, instead of having to create a separate pathway, that we could piggyback on some of the courses we're already offering in our health science and get our kids an EKG certification.
Yeah.
And so they would just enhance their marketability as they leave our program. It'd be another certification they could tag onto.
And I think it's a perfect one for a girl like this who needed a way to help work through college, give her some certifications that solidify things, and then she can move on. So all those types of things are awesome, right? Hey, you can use this your first year or two of college to pay for college, just like the cosmetology people do, right? Or barbering. Remember how you had the barbering degree way back then?
The what?
Remember when you had that barbering degree way back then?
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
That's what happened to John.
All right, Mr. Miller, are you good?
Mr. Miller, I do know that my friend has a daughter, senior, graduating from Lake Dallas ISD in their firefighter academy, and I know that she's not trying to get the offers. She's being sought after by other firefighters departments in the area, but she's actually going to OSU for an actual 4-year degree. I think it's OSU.
It is.
Because she wants to further it even. So she ignored all the offers, but she was highly coveted and sought after as a senior in high school, graduating in their program.
I think we need to see what happens with our students. I'm just telling you, as a matter of fact, what those chiefs are telling me, right? They're not going to hire them if they're not 21. Now,
and I don't know what they were going to hire her for because they wanted her at her high school.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's great. And again, if some of this is that it's a badge, right, that I've got this certification like Eagle Scout and they want to hire you more because you got it, then so be it. I think it's great. I just don't want the expectation that they're going to be able to go out and fight fighters and, give that,
She was doing all of that in the Lake
Yeah,
Dallas
I know
program.
she was, but anyway, I think we're on the same page.
Okay, do you have any other questions?
No.
Okay, I just had a few questions. One is, I'm just curious what the floral is in the agriculture science. I mean, are we putting flowers on the cows, or what is the difference between that and the other one?
Well, floral design is a course that is taught through ag, and that's to become a florist. So your florists at your grocery stores, your FTD flowers, all that is in what we provide them is the Texas State Floral Design Certification. Right now, we can provide them the level 1. Our goal is to expand that program where we can provide the level 2 certification as well.
But how is it different from in the culinary arts?
Just connecting the two, not.
Okay,
It's
not
just
two different
programs that are working together.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if our culinary program was catering this event, for example, then if we had floral arrangements, centerpieces, then our floral design program would work alongside them to create some of the decor.
Okay. So my two questions are, one is, I know we did have at one point in time when I toured the Ag Barn, they were allowing like elementary and some middle school students. Is that still happening? And then how would that look like? I love having it over one program as opposed to different teachers doing different things. I like one person doing the whole program as a whole. So how would that do if you're still doing that?
I think it's the junior FFA program where you have to be 8 years old or 3rd grade to be part of that. Yes, that continues on. Currently, most of our junior FFA students are the younger brothers or sisters of our high school students, and that is kind of how that all came about. But occasionally we have other students that are just have that interest, that's what they want to do. And if we have space, the way we have it now is obviously our high school students take priority, And then the availability to the junior FFA members is all based on space. And if we have room for them, we encourage them and welcome them into our program. So that we would expect that to continue on. And as we would expand this to make these agricultural offerings available to Hebron High School and Flower Mound High School, then the trickle-down effect into those feeder patterns of those two schools as well, I think we would receive some junior FFA members as well.
So my hope would be is that could be under one program as well, because we wouldn't want a middle school teacher to let the program fall short because they're over here. It'd be nice if that was under one umbrella as well. So that's just my point on that, because there was some issues when we went over there, neglect of some pigs because they weren't making it over there every weekend, and then what we saw is the ag students were taking it over to take care of them. So it needs to be more of a commitment, and that one teacher holding those students to that commitment. That's just my 2 cents. My last thing is this is wonderful, and I love this program most of all. And some kids enter, because they just want to try the trade, and some actually are doing it because they may not want to go to college. So who is their advocate? I mean, you guys do a great job, but who is their advocate to really talk to these students, to talk to them about encouraging them for those certifications, to getting them internships and the partnerships with that? Who is doing that for these students?
Their instructor is the primary person that helps find the internships, along with the counselors at the career centers, and then the principals, and then myself. We all work together to make these contacts. And then Lindsay Ayers in the communications office has been very helpful in making contacts for us and bringing us, hey, these people are interested. And then we talk with them, what is it they're looking for, what program are we offering, how can we line it up? Okay, it matches with this program, let's get the instructor involved so we start that pathway. And then once we can establish a pipeline to that, or just open the communication with the industry, then we set up their trainers, or some companies have someone that's over their education outreach. Some of them, they use someone from their HR department that we get in contact with our instructors. They come in, and then we set up opportunities for them to come and meet with our students and explain what it is they offer, and then how do we get our students lined up with it. So it is there's a lot of us that take part in making sure that these kids are aware of the opportunities. And then once we've made them aware, it's how do we support that and make sure that there aren't any barriers that are eliminating them that are beyond their control. Like, can we overcome a transportation issue? Do they have to have a driver's license? Do they, that's what we're finding out with some of our students that are in our auto tech internship, that they don't have a driver's license. So they can't move a car from the front of the lot to the back of the lot because they're not a licensed driver, but yet they can fix the car. They can help work on that car once it's in the shop. And so we're looking at how can we partner with communities and schools so we can see how can we get these kids their driver's license. You don't, just because you have a driver's license doesn't mean you have to have a car. Right. And they don't need them to have a car and insurance and all that. What they need them to have is a driver's license. So how do we get these kids, how can we create an opportunity for these kids to go through the driver's education training while they're in our program to help them fill that little need that we hadn't thought about until we got into it and realized, hey, this is kind of important. We need to do that.
So do those counselors at the Career Center meet with all of the students?
Yes, they're meeting with the students. They're going into their classrooms. They're helping them write resumes, their cover letters. We bring in our partners from different industries to come from their HR departments to come in and help write their resumes and give them mock interviews so we can prepare these kids. We pulled up all the requirements of employees for Park Place dealerships and schools, so those kids would know that you have to look that your hair has to be, you can't have facial hair, you can't have this, you can't have that, this is their dress code. So we wanted them to be completely aware of what they're going in, and those are some of the things that our counselors are working with them on.
That's great. Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay, moving right along. So we're going to move into our finance report section. So the first part, Mike, Mr. Ball is going to talk to you about campus carryover funds.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. This item is one that has been an annual fixture really since 2012. This program really started in 2012, I think, as an effort to encourage campus principals not to just buy things at the end of the fiscal year because they had money left over. And so the program was begun to enable principals to carry over a certain amount of money that might have been that was unspent into the next fiscal year. And that kind of evolved then into discussions about, well, if I'm a principal and I want to save for a major capital expenditure program, I can just do that. But the evolution of that thought process left out the fact that state law in Texas provides that in the general fund in Texas public school districts, all appropriations lapse at the end of the fiscal year. And so that's why, if you remember a month or so ago, we came to the board with a budget amendment to reauthorize the purchase orders that had been issued in good faith during that fiscal year, but for which the goods had not been received, because technically those POs are voided at the end of the year, and so we need to reauthorize them. So that little factual part of this was left out of the discussion and so the thought process began to evolve that if I'm a principal, I can save for 2 or 3 years, but the practical reality of it is, and the way it has been administered really since day one, is it's really only a carryover from one year to the next year, and then it starts over again. And so principals really have not been able to accumulate money to buy really anything more than they could have bought if they'd have just bought it in the year they had the money. And then the other thing is as this thing came to the board last year, if you recall, it actually was in December of 2016. We presented this for that particular year, and the board said to us, we'd like to see the plans that the principals have for that money. Well, at that time, we had never asked principals for a plan. We never told them they had to have a plan, nor had there ever been any guidelines for what might be eligible to spend these funds on. And so we didn't have that information. And so what we said was, we don't have it, but we'll get it for the following year. Well, this is the following year now. So we gave the principals a heads up at that time and said, hey, next year you got to give us a plan. We got those plans, and we've summarized those very briefly for all 69 of the campuses, and we've listed them out to the right of that proposed budget amendment for the board's information. And what you see from that is it's all over the board. It's everything from professional development to technology equipment to furniture to science lab equipment, teaching and learning supplies. I mean, you just run the gamut of anything that a typical principal would spend their money on all year. Those are the kinds of things that you're seeing in those plans for the subsequent year. And so the other thing that became apparent as we, I think for the first time, we actually scheduled out the history, and you've got that in your package. It's a 3-page landscape format document that shows the history of all of our campuses from the inception of this program. And what you'll notice on many of the campuses, we're just carrying forward a very similar amount from year to year. There's occasional variances from that, but one could certainly take a reasonable position that it's a fairly similar amount each year. So all we're really doing is just shuffling paper, moving it to the next year when they really could have spent it in the year they had it. And then the next year we carry a very similar amount forward. And so we go all through this paper shuffling. We're bringing it to the board. seeking approval for something that's really not, in the long run, adding to the campus's available funding. And what we've seen, I think, now this is Mike's assessment of it, that it's really just become a part of the most principals just use this now as a part of their funding stream for the second half of the fiscal year. And so the recommendation that we're making as a part of this is that the board go ahead and approve this item this time, and that as a part of that we terminate this program, and that we help the principals to see that you have this money available this year. If you want to buy some furniture, go ahead and buy it, and let's get it ordered, and you'll have it. You don't really need to carry the money over in order to do that, because it's really not adding to the total bottom line of funding that's available to them when you take it in the context of the 5 or 6 year period that it's been going on. And then the other thing is, when you think about developing guidelines, we don't have guidelines other than our board policy and the business office procedures manual about how a principal can spend their money. I mean, we trust those principals with, anywhere from 500 to 2,000 plus kids. We also trust them to have good judgment on how they spend the budget that's allocated to them. And so when you look at what their plans are for these funds, it's the same types of items that they would use day in and day out. And so that's kind of, I think the question has arisen, why not just develop some guidelines instead of recommending that the program be ended? And I think that, to me, that goes to the core of, we don't tell principals how to allocate their budget money anyway, so why would we want to do that in this case? Because we've got to give the principals the freedom to allocate the resources based on the unique needs of the students on their campus. And because of the fact that we're really not carrying it over for multiple years, it doesn't really enable them to buy anything beyond what they would already be able to buy. It will just require them to shift their thinking a little bit to using the money in the year they have it, while at the same time not going out and buying a van load of paper clips just to use up the money. And so that's kind of our thinking on this, and that's what's led us to recommend that this thing be approved this time, because the principals are counting on it for this fiscal year. It's been in place since many of them have been the principal where they are, and it's just a part of their thinking now, and that would give us 6 months from now till the end of the fiscal year to say, look, this isn't a takeaway, it's just shifting. You need to use that money this year and not carry it over to the next year. So that's our thinking. Certainly we want the board's input on this if we're headed in the wrong direction. Now would be the time to let us know that.
And, Ms. Cox, board, I've talked to the principals at our last principal meeting and told them that it was going to be my recommendation to y'all to finish the program this year, but then do away with it. I think it when Dr. Burnett thought of the program, I think the intent was right. I think, but the system doesn't do what it was intended to, and the bottom line is most of the planned expenditures make a lot of sense. And what I told them is, if you're saving to buy furniture, buy the furniture. The system doesn't allow you to, as Mike said, to accumulate 3 or 4 years of money towards furniture. So buy however much furniture you can this year, and then next year save out of your budget and buy some more. So anyway, I think they're good. I think they're good with that. They understand that.
Questions?
I just have a slight experience of, there was a principal who always liked giving money back to the district before this plan came in place. And there were other principals who spent every last dime on things that they may or may not have needed to spend all of their money. And so that was my understanding when this went into place, kind of to alleviate both ends. You know, I guess there's a couple of things on here that I do question. There are programs on here that principals want to do. And we have had a problem in the past of a principal using their funds to do a program that is not district-wide. And now we just have it on a specific campus. So I guess I would like some guidelines, some more guidelines for principals and how they can spend their money so that they don't strap the rest of us to then spend money or other principals to spend money because of where they are in a feeder pattern for that. So I guess I would like some guidelines even for whether we continue this program or not. I would like some guidelines for that. Not that I think anything on here is terribly egregious, but I do see, I just kind of counted 4 programs.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Ms. Prosnick. Let me be clear. We, and when I say we, Dr. Rapp and I, in the past 6 months, I've met with all principals in smaller groups, together, and we've made it clear on a couple things. One, and it's always been our practice, but for instance, if they want to buy a technology software program, that goes through the purchaser that's, works with technology in Craig's office. But all that in the past was not always vetted with curriculum, with our learning and teaching. All that is vetted. So we're not going to allow a program to be bought without it being vetted through her. And so we've made those things clear to staff. And actually the system makes it to where it can't be approved without us being aware of before it's finally approved. So I think our principals, you're right, some of them have operated a little bit, I don't think intentionally, but that their teacher goes to something and sees, hey, the next best thing, since sliced bread, and they want it, and the vendor is willing to give them a free sample, and so it sort of goes from there. And so we've communicated over and over again in the last year that that's not acceptable. We're not going to have silos where a program that we didn't approve and we didn't vet is being used. So there's no doubt that we already have those kind of guidelines. But the guidelines I think Mike's talking about is guidelines about these expenditures. There's no doubt. Why would a school even have some technology requests on here with? So some of those things on this list, we didn't water down the list. We wanted to be, we wanted to be transparent. But some of the things on the list, we certainly had concerns about.
And regarding the comment and the question, Ms. Prosnick, about some principals operate differently than others, I think you can look at this history schedule and you can see that. You can see there are some campuses who've never really carried over anything, and that tells you that principal is spending it all up to the end of the year. And then there are other principals who will carry over a 5-figure number every year, and that's just a difference in how they operate. And so this program hasn't really changed the fact that principals are going to operate. When you got 69 principals, some of them are going to operate differently than others, and you can see that pretty clearly when you look down. And we just scan down that schedule of what campuses have carried over what each year. You can see that difference in how principals operate.
Okay, Ms. Hassett. Question kind of along the lines of Ms. Prosnick. Do the campuses get the same amount every year? Or, I don't want them to not spend it on a truckload of paper clips because we're only going to give them what they spent last year, because then they're going to spend it on.
That's a great question, and thank you for that. That gives me an opportunity to explain how we do allocate money to campuses. The campuses receive an allocation based on the demographic projections for the following year. Like right now, literally, we're in a 2 to 3 week period where we have distributed to campuses, here's the allocation that you're going to have for next year based on the number of children that are expected to be at your campus next year. And then that number is adjusted for special ed population, ELL population, and mobility. And GT, thank you.
Our own water.
Pardon me?
It's our own water. It's our own.
Sort of, yes. And so based on and there's I'm sorry I don't have the allocations committed to memory, but there's 3 different levels. The lower level the lowest level is elementary, the middle level is middle school, and the highest level per student allocation is high school. And so each of those grade spans gets those allocations based on expected student population adjusted for those things we mentioned. And so until we change that per capita allocation, that remains the same, but the dollar amount won't remain the same because of the changes in their demographics each year. So at the initial allocation, we give them 85% of that, and then when we get the snapshot enrollment numbers in October, we adjust that and recalculate it and give them it's like a settle-up process with TEA. We give them the remainder of their allocation. That way, if the demographer misses the mark, we're not having to take away money from them. We just reduce that 15% or increase it as the case may be. So that's how the campuses are allocated funding every year.
Okay. So you're not going to take it away just because they didn't use it.
We're just saying you need to spend it in the year you got it instead of trying to carry it over.
Then a couple other questions on here. I see calculators a lot. Can we not try to get a partner to sponsor every year? We can slap their logo on it. Can we not try to get someone out in the district to DATCU or I don't know, someone just to give us money for calculators every year, and then whoever needs it, the campuses that request it can get some calculators. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out a way so they can use the money for the kids other than calculators. There's just, you don't have to answer that now. It's rhetorical. Don't answer it now.
We'll get Lindsay on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that would be a great use of our partnerships, especially if we can slap a label on it. Also, a few of these things made me think. Power blinds in a cafeteria, Flower Mound 9. When we see things like that, does it trigger us to think about how we're building buildings?
Well, sure. That's a great point. We've been aware of the need for that in at least 2 of our campuses that I'm aware of, and you know, as those campuses are refurbished, those are typically fairly high dollar things, probably a higher dollar than a campus could accumulate in a 2-year period.
Right.
And so some of the things and that's probably a good example of things that are on that list that may not even really be realistic for a principal to do. Given the cost that's associated with it. So,
but we're also thinking about it as we build new campuses, as we refurbish in the 20-year refresh cycle. That also goes along with the school marquee for Lakeview. Where is that in our, I don't even remember thinking about school marquees when we're talking about our facilities plan. And are those kind of things actually in our facilities plan?
We have a specification on what the district marquee would look like or what it would include. The ones that what you see when you see that is you see a campus who wants to go beyond what the district standard for a marquee is.
Got it. Okay.
That's what that's about.
Well, and marquees weren't always a district spec, and so that's why you see the variation. So
but it's
a spec.
Above and beyond.
It's an spec now.
It is now, yes.
But it wasn't in the past.
Okay, and then one last question, I promise. Professional learning, what about when we change and they can't carry it over, would they just then start a new year and be able, because if they're already planning on holding some of that money back for professional learning in the spring semester, how can they make sure to still have money for things?
Well, that's a great question, and I think that's the one thing that the timing really can't be adjusted, because the professional development day, it is when it is typically, although there are days scattered throughout the year. So I think the right answer on that is just to say that we would work with a campus that if they've got a commitment they've made or want to make, we would do our best to try to work with them, and we would vet that through Dr. Rapp's team to make sure that it was indeed appropriate, but that the intent here is not to, restrict anybody from doing what they need to do, and we tell them that all the time, that, if they have a need, we want to work with them on it.
When we're working with the principals, having our ed specs, having our facility plans, so now they know some of this is just the district's going to provide. Are we communicating now? There's a plan, and you can look at it, and you can see where your campus is. So instead of you having to think about, it's starting to look bad, I need to start planning. They already know the district's on it, and that we're partnering, and there's a plan.
They do, but it often is not happening as quickly as they would like, and so that's what we're seeing with some of these things. It is maybe in the bond program to do some of these things, but it may not be until a year 5 project, and so a principal's thinking is, well, gee, 5 years from now, the entire population on my campus will be completely turned over, so the current kids, their entire high school experience will be over by the time I get the blinds, or whatever the case may be. So, not trying to throw a principal under the bus with that comment, but I think that's the thought process, and that's what we want. We want principals to advocate for their students, I think, and so I think that's just a reflection of that.
Thank you. Else?
I just really wanted to I think I said this in the finance committee, but this is about, I want to make sure that the principals really focus on the needs and not just about the money on the campuses, but the needs. And you go through here and you see like instructional materials, and I just want to make sure that moving forward that we're still watching what the principals are spending. I mean, I think we have the best principals in the country. And so I want to make sure that they are being fully supported. When you see things like instructional materials, when we see a propensity of those in a year, then I want to make sure that we as trustees and staff are having those rich dialogues about, are we needing to make other adjustments in the budget for the next year to really meet the needs of all of the campuses. And so I understand why they're given this money and each, but when we see those repeated patterns, just want to make sure that we're still, we're not doing this program anymore, so we're not going to come back and review at the end of the next budget cycle. I'd love to have a breakdown of how those are really actually spent once we go to that full year system, and the timeline of that spend. Or forward thinking with a little comfort on the end, might be better for some thought processes to happen.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ms. Sells. There's no doubt that the term instructional materials is a broad umbrella.
Very much
but,
so.
No doubt.
But, it does lead to the discussion, and we've had these discussions, with our school folks and Dr. Coburn, that, there does need to be some standard within a few areas. For instance, we need to at least find out what principals are putting towards libraries, because it's all over the place, and it's always been all over the place, and it's bothersome, in some places, and so there's no doubt that we need to have those kind of discussions.
Oh, I think you really answered all my questions. I think initially I was kind of disappointed to see this, but from what you're saying is really, I guess because I didn't want to, I felt like they were losing the ability to purchase things, but what you're saying is they're not.
That's correct.
There's nothing on the list that they couldn't purchase in setup where they were having to do it in the year. And so that was really my only, I guess, concern or hesitation was that they would lose maybe some additional purchasing power. All my other questions were answered, so thank you.
Miller?
This list here are items that they were to use last school year, but the purchase orders ended and expired.
No, sir. I'm sorry. I didn't communicate well. I brought that up by way of example, to illustrate the fact that the appropriations lapse at the end of the fiscal year. That's why we have to bring those purchase orders back to the board to reauthorize, because state law says they're voided at August 31 if the goods are not received.
Okay, so did we itemize the things that did not get purchased by campus, like this, right? So if there was a $95 that didn't get purchased in that
Well,
thing,
I probably erred in even bringing that up, because that really was an example. It has nothing to do necessarily with this issue. What these things that you see here on the right of this proposed budget amendment are the principal's prospective plan on what they would do next fiscal year, or really this fiscal year, if this budget amendment is approved. Because as we sit here tonight, they don't have access to this money. And to be honest with you, many of them are apprehensive about, they're calling the finance office and saying, is the board going to approve this? And because they, as I said earlier, they have kind of begun to rely on this as their second half of the fiscal year funding source. Now I think we're going to, if the board adopts the recommendation that we're making, then that'll give us 6 months to help them retool their thinking a little bit so that they can use the funds in the year that it's provided to them by the board.
This was their budgeted money from last year that they're wanting to carry.
They did not spend this money. Yes.
Okay.
So
and
it's
so
their
that's
budgeted
what I
money.
want to get into.
Yeah.
Because so far it's been kind of, well, we don't want them to lose anything. I look at things on here and ask myself, how in the world did teachers not make these investments in classrooms? I mean, what is it that got in the way of them putting in the blinds in Flowermound 9, which Flowermound 9, just like Marcus 9, needs those blinds in. So they can't continue to not let that done. What is it that causes a teacher to defer professional learning and not spend the money? What is it that causes Hedrick Middle School, where they need paper and pencils for STAR, and they don't spend it? And I could go on the list here even more. And what I would say is...
But I think some of those are just that the STAR isn't here yet, so they were waiting to
you can
to
pick
spend
on
the-
STAR, but it's a fundamental theme here that says...
But some of them they weren't intending, so the professional
Dr. Rogers,
development.
what's the answer? That's a
Well, I
speculative
think the
answer. What's
answer is because it continues to perpetuate the year before they saved some money to buy STAR materials, and so now next year they have some money that they need to buy STAR materials in the next year. And our point is, just buy the STAR materials in the current fiscal year and be done with it. So it started as a good idea, sort of goes back to Ms. Prosnick's point of, hey, don't go buy all these paper clips. That's not happening because they can't afford to do that, I can promise you. But in the past it did. I mean, I was a principal, and you know what? At the end of my fiscal year, because I knew that at Marcus High School we went through $2,000 worth of paper every year, I bought a truckload of paper because I knew, before, and I still gave money back to so it's really just meant to stop that mentality.
Yeah,
And-
so we couldn't allow a carryover, right? Hey, if you don't get it done, you can carry it over. It's just like our vacation days. You can't carry vacation over anymore, so you better use it. We're going to do the same here with this money.
That's right.
I think it's a reasonable ask to make sure that, Joe, the associate school chiefs are meeting with the campuses, looking at this stuff. Because here's the deal, if we've waited half a school year to approve them getting these things like professional learning, like instructional materials, it's a half a school year that's gone by, they've not been able to spend the money. And this probably is something we could have done in September to release that money.
Yeah, I need to be clear, just because it's on the list and it says professional learning or instructional materials doesn't mean that they haven't had money for instructional materials or professional learning. It's just that they had some more earmarked for future professional learning, or there's no one that's been without stuff to this point. I promise you, if I ask Ms. Trevino to pull up their budgets and to pull up what's been encumbered versus what's budgeted, they're way under. They had plenty of more extra room to buy other things up to this point. So it's just that they had earmarked these special funds for these ideas that they were planning to spend on. So
it's really a timing issue.
I appreciate that, but I bet what you could do, I bet you could take a different approach here, and you could probably save half the money. Because if this was a business, what we do is say, you need to come write a reason why you need to get it. Right? I mean, so Rockbrook not having a playground shade canopy, and where does that get lost? That Rockbrook didn't put it in last year. Some of this comes from last year, and they haven't had it this year. And so I just, to me, there needs to be a more effective communication around this so that this doesn't happen again. Because this year it ends, right? But I would tell you that I bet you, because what we're going to do is force them to spend it, about half this money probably doesn't even need to get spent.
Yeah, there's no doubt that we're going to pay attention to it. Let me be clear. First off, we have not changed the per pupil allocation for, I know, as long as he's been here, and certainly not when Dr. Burnett was here. So the per pupil is the amount that a school gets for elementary or middle. It's not changed in a long time. We're not planning to change it.
That's reflected here, right?
Yeah, that's reflected. That's where they got that money is from their per pupil allocation, how many students they have, and what's the WADA, percentage that we give them extra. So there's no doubt that schools and everyone else in our future budget dilemma are all going to get to feel a little bit of the pain. Certainly, we're going to try to prevent the schools from experiencing as much as possible, but we're going to all get to feel something.
Let me just ask my last question here. So if this is the per pupil allocation, is this list all-inclusive of all the campus monies that need to be spent?
Yeah.
So this is an additional sum of money that comes from last year.
This is what they haven't spent.
That's right.
Right. And I'm even more concerned as to why they didn't put these investments in last year for students to benefit this year.
Because they probably got about that same, if you look at the...
They had a carryover from the year before. So they
I know how the carryover works. I get it.
I think, Mr. Miller, the example that you brought up is a great example of potentially a lack of understanding of how this works. The Rockbrook playground shade canopy, you cannot buy a shade canopy for $10,000. And given the fact that this is a function of I think the way the perception has evolved about how the program works is inconsistent with the reality of Texas school district budgeting. Because in order to purchase a shade canopy for a typical elementary playground, it would probably take 3 times that amount. And so a principal, was it 4 times? 4 times that amount. So a principal would have to save that $10,000 for 4 years, and that's not possible with this program. And so the fact that that's on this list is an indication of a little bit of a lack of understanding about how this works, and possibly an understanding about how much a shade canopy costs.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Now, and I leave this, and you could decide whether this is micromanagement or not. Is somebody going to sit down with these campus leaders and say, do you really need this? Like, hey, you know what? You're on a list here, Cowdy Ridge. Do you need those instructional materials? Because you know what? Maybe we do. That 230, maybe there's another campus that does, and we move it around.
Well, there's no doubt that we'll have conversations with the principals after y'all make a decision next week of this budget amendment. Certainly, we'll have a little more serious conversations with some of them that we feel are very out of line. I don't know that we would on every instructional material expenditure, but some of them, we won't approve. So.
All right, I don't have you have one more question?
Well, I guess my thought would be, I don't want a reward or a, non-reward, I can't think of the word right. Punishment, because someone either spent all their budget or didn't spend all their budget.
Oh, absolutely.
I guess I want like a no fault, because that is that was my perception before this went into play, that there was some of that principals felt like they were wonderful because they were giving the district back a certain amount of money of their budget every year, while others spent all of their budget. So I guess I would like that communicated so that they know you're just going to get this amount of money, and there's not going to be a reward or a punishment whether you don't spend half of it, et cetera, as long, once again, as we can make sure that those students' needs are being met.
Yeah, absolutely, Ms. Prosnick.
Mud?
As a longtime principal in this district myself, I mean, I'm not going to dare, we have given them that amount of budgeted money because we feel it's fair, we feel it's right. So, who are we to say that you shouldn't spend every last penny of it? Or, hey, if you can't find any reason to spend all of it, there's no doubt, the $5 in this account and the $25, we collect all that back at the end of the fiscal,
Right.
So, and we'll continue to do that.
I'll bet if you went down this list by list, either Joe called the principals or Mike, you'd find enough money left over to pay for the employee banquet, which is 1/5 of the money here. I mean, really, because if there's no penalty, I agree with Jenny, there shouldn't be a penalty or reward. Hey, do you need that money you were looking for last year? Well, if I have to, but do you need it, really? Because you know what? We can use it for some things in other schools. Well, if another school can use it, great. And what would happen is you're going to find that of that $600,000, you might recover $100,000 that can be used to other things. But if I think that I have to spend $1,200 on instructional materials, I'll get them and put them in the closet, because I'm not using them for this year, because my year's already well underway. Just a thought.
Yeah.
However you guys want to do it, it's
okay.
All right, and all my questions have been answered, so let's move on to facilities.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Cox. What you have in your packet is a product, and this is on the agenda tonight. The previous item will be on Monday night's agenda as an action item. This item is just for tonight. Because up to this point in the district's history, the facilities usage guidelines have really been administrative guidelines and not board policy, and so we're not contemplating, unless you direct otherwise, we're not contemplating bringing this to the board as an action item. We just kind of are looking for a head nod and maybe some direction on the next steps. So that kind of hopefully clarifies why this just says discussion item for tonight. But what you have is an item that's kind of bluish, and it says facility use packet. On the front it says phase 1, and then at the end of page 14 there's another kind of divider that says phase 2, and so before we get too far into it, we need to make a clear distinction. The page 1 through 14 is the phase 1 work that we've been focusing on since we started this project. Everything after that divider that says page 2 is part of the next steps that we'll talk about. So that's kind of what you have, and what we're proposing tonight is that the page 1 through 14, that phase 1 work, we believe it's in what the TEA would call a near final stage, that if you give us a head nod tonight, that we will finalize these and start communicating out that this will be how we'll operate on those facilities for the next school year. And that phase one work really involved the high school and the middle school varsity football stadiums at the high school level, and at the middle school level, there are 3 stadiums that have bleachers and lights and all of that are suitable for competition play. And so those are the facilities, the 5 high school varsity football stadiums and the 3 middle school football stadiums. That's the facilities that were included in the phase one work. So that's kind of the broad overview of what you have. And by way of refreshing our memory, we had a workshop on November the 8th with the board where we presented a PowerPoint, and based on that PowerPoint, the board gave us a half a dozen or so comments. We've incorporated those comments into the document that you have so that all of the changes that the board asked us at the November 8th meeting are now a part of that document. And so we believe it's at a point where we can move forward with it. We also need tonight to really talk about what phase 2 of the work would look like and the next steps that would be involved in that. And those are, if you look, as I said, and there's a divider after page 14, and the rest of that document has to do with all of the other district facilities that are currently available for rent. And if you recall, the high school and, well, really any of our high school and middle school facilities, athletic facilities that are fenced and gated, the practice has been we do not rent those. And so there's been some recent circumstances where maybe it's been said we didn't have a policy. Well, I'm making a distinction, I guess, between policy and guidelines. We do have guidelines on those, and the guideline is we don't rent them. And so it is an accurate statement in some cases to say we don't have fee schedules and conditions for renting facilities, and the reason we don't is because the position that our guidelines have provided is we don't rent those. So I wanted to clarify that, and when I'm saying the remainder of our facilities, we're really talking about everything that's not a high school football stadium or those 3 middle school stadiums that we have. And the complicating factor on that is we have 5 different interlocal agreements with towns and cities located within our district boundaries. And as we told the board at the November 8th workshop, those agreements date, the oldest one dates from 2002, and I think the youngest of those agreements is about a 2004 vintage agreement. And so all of them are 13 to 15 years old at this point. And I would say that it would be a safe statement to say that the majority of them are probably not being followed by either party to the agreement as we, here we are almost 15 years down the road from when those were negotiated. And so they're not widely complied with, I guess, would be a fair assessment of them. And so one of the things that we have before us, and because they're interwoven into all of these other facilities, and if you look in the document, we have multiple fee schedules on some of these other facilities, and the reason is because we have a fee schedule for scouts, and a fee schedule for nonprofits, and a fee schedule for entities that are tied in with the towns and cities based on these interlocal agreements. And and what we've found is that these interlocal agreements, some of the organizations, and they recognize we've got these multiple fee schedules, and so they approach the city or the town and say, hey, can we connect with your Parks Department and operate through this interlocal agreement, and then they get a lower fee. And the reality is they really don't have a connection, a significant connection with the Parks Department, but it's the back door to get a different fee arrangement with the school district. And so one of the things that we've kicked around is how do we renegotiate 5 interlocal agreements in a time frame that would be acceptable to the district as we look at the significant need to update our guidelines on all of the remainder of our facilities. And one of the things that we've had brief conversations about is just exercising the out clauses in those and say let's all acknowledge on a friendly, non-confrontational basis. Let's all acknowledge that these agreements have been in the file cabinet for a long time, and nobody's really all that tuned in to following them. Let's just do the out clause, and then if we want to have an ongoing relationship related to facilities, let's sit down and talk about what that might look like. So that's one of the options that we have moving forward. And that is sort of limiting our ability to move forward because in their present form, those agreements have a significant impact on what the Phase 2 fee schedules would look like and facilities that are available for rent and those types of things. So there's an acute need at this point to develop a path forward on those interlocal agreements that the board is comfortable with. The other thing that we need to do that, and I think we can do this fairly quickly, is we need to get some legal review of the actual contracts that we use with a potential renter to make sure that they meet all the legal requirements, and heaven forbid if there is a significant event that occurs at one of our facilities that our contracts would protect the district. And so I think we can get that done fairly quickly and have them in place so that we could use those for the 2018-19 school year, which is what we've said these Phase 1 guidelines would be used for. And then the last thing on our next steps is we talked about at our workshop in November, automating all this process so that the calendars would be visible to the campuses, and there would be a workflow that similar to what we do for a purchase order or a budget amendment or anything like that goes through Munis, that we would have a good documentation of who's seen this and who's approved it before it gets to the final point in facility services where the actual decision is made about, okay, here's a contract, let's execute it and actually rent this facility to this potential renter. So the remainder of our facilities, the interlocal agreements, the software, and the legal review of the contracts, those are the next steps that we're seeing. I think tonight we're looking for input from the board on how we go about, particularly as we look at renegotiating those interlocal agreements. That obviously involves 5 other elected bodies, and we certainly don't want to embark on that process unless the board is supportive of how we would go about that and what the board would like the outcome to look like from those talks. And so that's kind of the Phase 2 next steps that we're seeing. And I kind of jumped right into the Phase 2, but I probably was remiss in not stopping and asking, does the board have any questions or concerns about the Phase 1 part of it? related to the stadiums, high school stadiums and the 3 middle school stadiums. And that's kind of what we have. And Cox, I think, we certainly are soliciting and hopeful that the board will give us some input and guidance on how we move forward on this.
We can ask questions.
Pardon me?
We can ask questions
Okay.
on this process.
Yeah. So my question's actually from phase 1 to phase 2.
Okay.
So on page 12, under stadium facility use, number 3, I'm curious why that is just for the stadiums and that is not repeated for aquatic centers, and et cetera.
Because we haven't, that's a great question. What was the question?
Okay, so under 3, it says, any group not sanctioned by UIL and any group there is not a class for credit dedicated to that group, not part of LISD, players games are required to pay rental fees, external P is non-LISD activity, et cetera. So I'm just curious why that portion of how we define is not duplicated in phase 2 in any of those other categories.
That's a great question, and the reason is because the focus has been on developing the guidelines for phase 1, the stadiums, and that particular language was designed to it was designed so that there really will only be 2 categories of. There'll be, here's the rental rate for anybody, and then with the exception of the UIL sanctioned events, because what we don't want to do, we have to have, when our teams make the playoffs, we have to go to a neutral location typically, unless we flip home and home, and I don't know all how that works, but we typically go to a neutral location, so we want to have good relationships with other districts because they also need a neutral site, and so they're going to come and want to use our facilities just like we go and want to use theirs. So that's the reason for the distinction about UIL sanctioned activities. The other thing is there are hundreds of select athletic organizations that are not UIL sanctioned, nor are they a part of our LISD campuses and the athletic programs. And in fact, they compete with our campuses for athletes. Many of those organizations actually require the athletes to sign a contract that they will not participate in the school's athletics. And so our thinking is that we wanted one rate for the public. So if a select XYZ sport league wants to rent our stadium, here's the rate. And if a UIL sanctioned playoff game from 2 other districts that don't involve LISD need a neutral location, we want that to be at a different rate. And that's the only 2 distinctions we're recommending for the rates to rent the stadiums.
Yeah, and
I
Ms.
understand that
Prosnick,
for the stadiums. I'm just curious why we don't have that for like the natatorium and other things. Because I won't lie, I'm focused on one thing. External PE is a non-LISD activity. And so we have external PE, water polo, for example. I want to make sure that we are consistent across the district with that policy, that external PE is a non-LISD activity. Even though you get credit for it, it's considered a non-LISD activity.
Well,
Yeah.
but isn't that something that I hear what you're saying, but it's like the mixed martial arts boxing is a non-LISD activity,
Right.
but it's you get a credit for
Right.
it. And I think what you're talking is, because I'm interested in, maybe for different reasons, the natatorium.
Right.
Well,
I guess I'm just curious why that language, and I realize that we are focusing on phase 1, and I don't disagree with this language. I just would like for that language to be duplicated in phase 2.
And there's a very good possibility that it will be.
Okay.
We haven't really focused on, we have not focused at all really on the phase 2 portion of that, primarily because we really can't get too deep into that until we address the interlocal agreements. And so the areas where we did make we tried to make the let's just for the sake of discussion call them general conditions that are applicable. No, if it's doesn't matter what facility it is, those conditions apply. We did look at that because we wanted a section, and that's the very front section, I believe. Here's the conditions. It doesn't matter what you're renting. If it belongs to LISD, you got to follow these guidelines. Just basic things like you're responsible for damage and those kinds of things. But the specifics at that level, we did not make an attempt to in fact, we avoided making changes to those because what we've said was we're going to follow the existing guidelines until we get some new guidelines in place. And so what we're recommending is that we move forward with the Phase 1 guidelines, and then we have to follow, I think, these next steps, unless the board has some direction otherwise. The interlocal agreements are an integral part of how we will move forward with the Phase 2 work.
Okay, I had a couple questions on Phase 1. First of all, page 8, it says scouting groups, YMCA, meetings shall conclude before 8 p.m. I know our Boy Scout troop.
I'm sorry, Christy, can you, what are you looking at?
Page 8. Scouting troops, meetings shall take place prior to and conclude before 8 p.m. Troop 262 out of Downing, my boys are in that, and we conclude at 8:30. So do we know, 8 o'clock, why was it chosen? Is it going to change?
I think that has to do with lighting and use of the air conditioning and all of that.
But if they're doing it now, it's going to now change, so we'd have to have a different meeting time and date for our Boy Scout troops. How many troops does that affect? Because the custodials are there long after. Custodial work.
Yeah, is this,
But
this
the
It's
air's
an
turned
or,
off.
it's an or though, so it's saying those meetings must conclude or there's no climate control.
They turn the air off.
Or, so it's not a definite they have to conclude by 8 o'clock. You have to conclude by 8 o'clock or you can't have more air conditioning going on after that because.
But it says all events related to Boy Scouts, if they do not meet the above, will be charged a discounted. So the paragraph under that says they'll be charged.
And I don't think that's a.
I'm just curious, I know that's just one, are there any other Boy Scout troops around the area that will be affected? Is there any way that we could extend that to 8:30?
In other words, if you want to meet after 8 o'clock and have air conditioning, we would charge you.
Well, we start at 7, we end at 8:30. So we don't start at 8.
So you may have to start at 6:30.
Yeah.
Or the air would probably, the building would typically hold temperature.
The building, we've never had an issue with that.
Well, and I thought we were just talking about the stadiums and.
I think this is going to flesh out a lot of campuses.
There's no air
I don't
conditioning.
think this is a change.
Well, we have to put some
But then-
standards
but
in
that'll
place.
be
I think this is going to flesh out a lot of ways campuses are using it today that are not
We'd only be charging them
If
if
they-
they said, we're going to meet till 8:30 and we want the air conditioning run till
Got it.
8:30.
Okay. Which is a.
And I don't think that's, I don't actually think that's a new
It's not.
guideline.
No, that's.
Okay.
I mean, that's what's been in place.
Been in place, so.
So we turn the air
Well, it's half an hour.
Okay,
And
let's
actually,
keep
that's
moving on.
Okay, second, I remember we were talking about the current usage lacrosse. Do we know what their opinion is on the new usage fees? Is this in line with what they're paying now? Have they given you information since
They
we last
have,
met?
and I think it would be a fair assessment to say that the lacrosse group is not in agreement with the recommendation that we're making. But I would tell you that our athletic leadership does not believe it's good stewardship of the district's facilities to make the varsity stadiums with the artificial turf available to the lacrosse.
Well, but they're currently
folks.
at the middle school. And so
Right.
is that in line with what they're doing right now
It
anyway?
it is,
their
but
pricing-
they currently are not happy with playing at the middle
Totally,
schools.
totally understand
Yeah.
that, for sure. But in line and with the prices.
I
Is this
think
an
I
increase in
think
prices?
the new recommended rates on the middle schools are very similar to what they're currently paying.
Because I wasn't sure. Are we talking about only phase one or do questions of phase two?
I think right now we're trying to
Okay,
stick
go
to
ahead.
phase one.
I just wanted to clarify, because you said we can't really move forward with phase two till we that would, but the interlocal agreements, do they affect phase one?
In my opinion, no. One could argue, the reality is we have just said we don't rent our high school stadium, period. And yet some of those interlocal agreements probably could be read to say that the stadium is included in them. And so it's a perfect example of how probably neither party is following that. We're saying that the stadiums are not available for non-school use. Some of the towns and cities are imposing fees on us that, and some of which have been very recently, and fairly significant fees, without regard to what those interlocal agreements might say. And I don't mean to introduce that as hey, we need a quid pro quo here, but that's the reality. Yes, I guess our thinking has been that if we're willing to say we're not renting those regardless of what those interlocal agreements say, then there's not a whole lot of difference in that and saying we are going to rent them and here's the fee.
And Ms. Timmis, just a reminder, GKD local, which is sort of the policy, for a long time until I think the policy audit that it actually had in policy that we didn't rent stadiums, and so, but that is not part of policy anymore because of the audit that happened when Dr. Brockman was here. So that's why it's changed too. And of course, I think as the board sort of indicated in November at our board workshop, we want to make them available. We just want to make sure, if I remember the data that Mike and his staff provided, I think it's not cheap to rent our turf stadiums, but it's in line with what a lot of other places charge.
Just a quick follow-up would be the date once we roll this out, if we get to a point at the end of a year or 6 months and it looks like we're having to have additional staff, custodial service, there's damage done. I think there's just going to be a lot of follow-up. Are we going to have like a review? We're going to say this is good.
Absolutely, and that's a great question. And one of the reasons I said earlier, it's not in our current thinking unless the board directs otherwise that the board would take action on this, because I think it enables us to respond much more quickly if we see that something we missed the mark here, something's not working, and we need to adjust it. If it becomes a board item, then we've got this process we have to go through, and we can't respond quickly to that. And so what we want to make sure, though, is that the board is supportive of these things and that we move forward with them as administrative guidelines. And then, I think, I know nobody cares about what I've seen in other districts, but I think I do have some insight here that's relevant. Every district that I've been in has rented their high school stadiums, and they've had fee schedules very similar to the fees that we're proposing. And I can only remember, other than UIL playoff games, I can only remember a couple of situations like a Division III college track meet or something along those lines. You just do not have a significant demand to rent a high school football stadium for $3,000 a night. And so I hope that perspective could provide a little comfort level for the board that I think if you talk to districts, there's not people standing in line to rent the stadiums at these kind of rates. And that's the whole idea, because in order for us to be good stewards of those facilities, if we rented them out every night, they're not going to last. And we can't charge enough rent to accumulate money to replace those assets. And so that's one of the reasons for having the fee schedule that some would view as high, and they are, because those are very expensive facilities. So I don't anticipate, based on my own experience across the state, I do not anticipate a great demand for the stadiums at these fee levels.
Ms. Sells?
I just was wondering, can you tell me again when you were talking about the onboarding of the online calendar system? Is that in phase
Well,
two?
the calendars would just be a part of it. It would be a facility rental management system. It'd be a procurement / evaluation process that we would have to go through to select a program that would do all the things we would want it to do, create a workflow of approvals. Obviously, when you're talking about renting a facility, the calendar is a big part of that, but the calendar has to be integrated with the workflow and the rate schedules and, you know, the hours that,
lights and
all of that, yeah.
Okay. So phase two,
And billing and receivables really would be another part of that.
all tied into that.
Yes.
And so y'all will review something like that.
Yes.
The staff responsibilities, do we currently have a staff person that does?
We do.
That's
We
going to
have a lady that works in facility service named Tammy Burns, who virtually all of these requests go through her. That's her job.
Do we anticipate an increase of these requests, and will she be able to handle the increase if there is one? And then do we have any idea what the potential income?
Well, that's a great question. I do not anticipate a significant increase in revenue from renting high school football stadiums. We're already renting the middle school stadiums, and so we've tried to keep those fees fairly close to what we're already charging and certainly what other districts are charging. And so I don't anticipate a significant increase either in volume of transactions or in dollar amount, simply because one of the purposes of the fee schedule, as I said earlier, is to sort of limit the usage to really serious, responsible groups that are gonna treat the stadium like we would treat it and be willing to pay for the security and the staff and all that goes along with that.
What actually occurs during these 50 business days before the desired date? Is that pretty much a standard time frame? Seems like
I think it's an effort to make sure that our campuses have ample opportunity to schedule their own events on the calendar, so that we don't want to, you know, in a customer service environment, we don't want to, we'd rather tell a potential customer, sorry, that facility's already booked, than we would to book them and then have to bump them because a school facility or a school need arose.
I just have one question about stadium rules and regulations. It's on page 13. Are these already in place? Are these what we abide by now and for our own use? And really, I'm looking at the taping, no paper banners or signs, no taping of signs.
Those are current rules, yes.
Well, I mean, every football game I've ever been to has signs all over the field.
I'm not suggesting that everyone's following the rules. I'm saying that is the rule. And the reason for that is because the tape, there's every kind of tape you can imagine, and it doesn't always come off. I think that's the reason. Particularly in the summer when that metal is really hot and it just melts the tape. And so the preference would be to use some kind of attachment mechanism that doesn't stick to the bar. I mean, that's really what it's all about.
That's kind of a spirit buster.
I think you will see those rules at any if you look at any school's stadium rules, you'll find that, and that's fairly standard.
Okay.
But we don't have the tape police out there enforcing that.
Okay. Well, I know I'm really appreciative of the work that's gone into this and look forward to finalizing that phase 1 so that we can begin implementing.
And Ms. Sheffield, to be honest with you, when a district realigns, they actually set rules, even as far as signs at games and so on. The district executive committee. So some districts allow it as far as District 65A or so on. So that will be discussed.
Okay.
So I'll try to make sure that they are not spirit busters.
Well, and I had questions about the baby powder, but I don't want anybody to explain it to me right now. If somebody could just catch me on the parking lot on the way out.
They throw it up like it's smoke. It's covered.
It's high schoolers.
It's high school.
Sheffield, are you done?
It's hard to
90%
clean
of
up.
this is just high school behavior.
All right, Ms. Sheffield, are you done?
I'm done.
Okay, Mr. Miller.
I'll go to a different point, but I think to the point that Tricia mentioned here, I think that this has to be, with consequence, enforced with our campuses. No street legal vehicles are allowed on fields and tracks, period. But what if it happens? What if a booster drives a car on there? There has to be consequence for somebody. That is very damaging to our fields. As a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, we've had damage on our fields. So, Dr. Colburn, as this gets implemented, I think we as a board have to insist on some rigidity to protect the assets which are there to promote the use of this for athletes and ancillary programs to support LASD. And we've got rogue groups that tend to think it's their stadium. Just the band thinks that it's their, serving concessions is their thing. They bring in their own air conditioners and stuff and all kinds of violations, right? I mean, this is their spot, right? And so we've got to enforce that to some degree so that they just don't think they can set up whatever they want. I'm going to drift to a different perspective. I actually think we say we're not going to rent our Tier 1 facilities. That means our varsity campuses. I'll tell you what, we'd save a lot of time on the interlocals. We just say no. Because who's going to rent them? Lacrosse? Now, lacrosse is a club. Club soccer? Oh, club soccer. What did club soccer and girls do this year? You all know what they did? If you're going to play in club, you can't play in high school.
Yeah, that's typical.
Typical. So why should we rent them out at all?
$3,000. Most of them won't rent them out for $3,000.
And so why even rent it at all?
I'm okay
What?
with $3,000.
Yeah, but what you're going to do is impose an administrative headache here where we have to go out and broker interlocal agreements and all those things to what? To buy
This
our,
is not
let me
for the
finish, to
interlocal.
buy our own admission, have it be available to very few. Why not focus on the Tier 2 where we can provide people access to that? They're not turf fields. Maybe we could do some small modifications of some of the middle schools so that it's a little nicer to use, right? Small modifications that will recover money in. But it begs this question. What are we trying to accomplish to take our varsity stadiums, I'm only focused on that, and make those available for public use? What's the objective?
Well, I think, Mr. Miller, that's a great question. I think at present we are an outlier in Texas public school districts. Even the districts that have the nicest stadiums in the state make those stadiums available at some fee amount and some list of conditions. And so I think when we just, and we've been doing it, but when we say I'm sorry, they're just not available. We are an outlier in public school districts. And so I think this is an attempt to address the question that, hey, we have these facilities, how can we not make them available to the public? Because we're recommending fee amounts that would in themselves limit the demand, if you will. And I don't believe that we will see a huge administrative burden because I think the answer, I think it'll be a very short phone call or a very short visit to our website even to look at the fee schedule, and then the phone call won't happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it's going to create a significant administrative burden. I think the administrative burden probably relates to the remainder of the facilities because that's where the demand is.
Okay. So let's move on to that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm confused though in a situation on priority 1 why it requires a bunch of interlocal. What we're doing is setting up an arrangement that should have nothing to do with municipalities. Nothing to do with municipalities.
And that's
as to where soccer clubs and those clubs could operate. So what I'm concerned about is if we start getting anywhere close to interlocal agreements with cities.
He just said that earlier. You must have not heard him. It doesn't.
Okay, so we're off that.
Phase 1 has nothing to do with
Phase 1 has nothing to do with the interlocal agreements.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Correct.
Great. Well, then what I was going to do is pivot to, I think what's more important is to get Tier 2 done, where we may be able to buffer some of the angst that comes from not being able to have this, and I know that might be, we've talked about this, the same price, and that they're going to use those other facilities, similar to how they use a basketball arena or the natatorium, et cetera.
I'm not sure I followed that.
Well, I think that it's as urgent, maybe in parallel. I think if we do this sequentially, we're not going to do interlocal agreements, so we're going to come up with a fee schedule for the varsity campuses. That's pretty easy to do. Come up with a varsity schedule.
And we've done that. That's in this document.
Right, but I thought we were going to focus on part 1 and then 2. If that's done, then maybe we're done with 1.
I've done a poor job of communicating because what's before us tonight is Phase 1, which is the varsity football stadiums. There's 5 of them, and 3 middle school stadiums. And what we're in this page 1 through 14, there are fee schedules that we're recommending. There are the conditions we're recommending. There are all of the rules and regulations. And what we're suggesting is that the Phase 1 portion of this document is ready to go.
Okay, then I
with a head nod from the board, we can move forward with that.
Great, so it's ready to go, and then it's Phase 2, and we'll look at all the ancillary things, et cetera.
Ms. Prosnick has brought up a great point. I've been saying there are 3 stadiums. Those are
Griffin, Shadow Ridge, and I thought
and Purnell is the other one. And the reason Purnell's not listed is because we're going to have to take it out of service and move that facility over to Dixon, not Dixon, Harmon, thank you. And so when that work's done as a part of that bond package, we'll be back to 3.
Okay, but then we have the issue of the track at Marcus, which is not a turf track, and the one at Killow, and let's hold off on Harmon given the moving around. Those 2 are a little bit different. So if we're saying those are in priority 1 and those are $3,000,
we're not saying that. We're saying that the only facilities that are covered in the Phase 1 portion of this are the 5 high school football stadiums.
And 3 middle schools.
And 3 middle schools.
And the 3 middle schools are $300.
Everything else is part of Phase 2.
Good. So I just have just 2 questions. So these fees, I think this is great, and thank you for all the hard work, and I think we are moving in the right direction because I know we've been kind of talking about this for several years now. So is this in line kind of with other districts? You kind of alluded to that, but
absolutely.
Okay. And then do we have a timeline for Phase 2 to kind of so we'll know?
That's what we're looking for direction from the board on, because really, as I see it, the first thing that needs to happen to get the Phase 2 work done is to deal with the interlocal agreements.
Why do we have to have that?
Because they control, if we're going to follow the letter of those agreements, there's a significant amount of control in them over who can use our facilities and under what circumstances. And the more I've dug into it and looked at it, I'm not sure, but what a good course of action would not be to set up meetings with those various municipalities and just say, look, this stuff's 15 years old.
Just push the reset.
And let's just reset. Let's exercise our out clause. Let's just start over. And let's talk about what do we need, not what did we need back in 2002. Right. And I think then we could proceed, if we were to do that, we could proceed kind of on a parallel track of negotiating with the towns and cities new interlocal agreements at the same time that we're developing guidelines for the remainder of our facilities based on what our needs are. Because I think in some of the agreements, even 15 years ago, they were written so that there's more requirements imposed on the district than there is the respective town that might be involved.
And Mike, is it not true that one of the reasons we feel like we need to do that is because these interlocals create these different tiers.
That's
of
exactly.
Costs that different entities, different groups have to pay, and until we clean that up, we're going to have all these different levels of payments, and that's what complicates it.
And there's 1,600.
I would just ask that you use some discretion, though, in places where we don't create a problem if there is. As an example, I saw the city of Highland Village putting up new nets on one of our properties that we have an interlocal on, that pretty much they maintain. And so for them to get, hey, we're going to terminate everything and start over, there may not be a problem there.
Yeah,
I mean,
is that the football field?
No, well, it's a
Briar
soccer
Hill?
field.
Yeah,
No. This is over at Harlington, and
there's
so,
signage up. There's benches.
Yeah, I mean, so I would say this: I think we should as much be unilateral as we can, except for if there's not a problem, if this is not some interlocal agreement that it's just, hey, the city takes care of us and we let them do it. Don't go terminate it.
Yeah, and we're really talking more about fenced in.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. I just want to make sure that something like that, because kids are getting scheduled. And listen, I don't care if they have access to it. To me, where I live over there, no kids playing on it. It's better for the ambiance for me. But the fact is, it's a field they've used for 10 years. They practice out there, little soccer kids, little football kids, little baseball kids, and, uniforms.
And Christy would like to sell it to them. So,
Yeah. So, Mr. Ball, in a crystal ball, do you have a timeline or?
I do not, because part of this is I'm back to the interlocal agreements. Obviously, as Mr. Miller has just pointed out, all 5 of those have some sensitivity associated with them, and so I think that is not going to be an overnight process to work through that with 5 different governmental entities.
Could we ask for a review at the 60 days April meeting, 15
Certainly,
minutes in the workshop?
I think the initial guidance would be really a process of, is there a preference for just taking the existing agreement as a starting point and trying to renegotiate those, or just hitting the reset button in a very collegial manner with these organizations, so that our intent is not to kick any little kids off a soccer field, but to just hit the reset button on these legal contracts between the 2 governing bodies. And I mean, truthfully, both parties to most of these agreements have not really been following them to the letter anyway, and so I don't know that hitting the reset button, if it's properly communicated, would be that big a shock to anybody if we sat down face to face and said, look, we want to deal in good faith, we want to be good neighbors and cooperate and all that. I think I'm guessing, but I would think that the other parties to those agreements might view that as, gee, we thought you'd never come, because we realize they're obsolete as well.
Well, for the sake of time, because it's 9:30, I'm going to offer something. I'd like to see where we're at in 60 days at the next board meeting. I think we sever the agreements amicably, but go in with, hey, we're going to university, the board wants to go to, here's the contract, right? This is the contract we're putting before you guys, and go from there.
Mr. Miller, I would defer to our legal counsel on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of legal things that they have to do, no doubt about it, right? Write the agreement, terminate, find out what the termination clause is, but I guess rather than say it's, well, let's go do a bunch of things and then you'll get back to us, let's work towards a 60-day review, right? Gives you 30 days to look into everything, write the letter, schedule the meetings, 30 days out. I mean,
Yeah, and the only thing I'd prefer to do is go ahead and, meet with them and talk about the out clause, but listen to their input before I draw up a contract to then hand, so do what you want, what you state, but get their input at our meeting before we draw up a future contract. 'Cause
yeah,
they may,
if you can do it.
So if I hear what you're saying, you're asking, are we in favor of a reset or a renegotiation? Is that really?
That's right.
So I favor a reset.
I say reset.
Reset.
There you go. All right, Brian.
All right.
It's 9:30.
That's what we need. And we'll come back to you at the April board work session. And we'll put it closer to the front of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Ball.
Really good, Kevin.
Thank you.
Mr. Kobeck.
I'm sitting here by Lori. My buddy.
I noticed in my packet, there was not a sheet for internet services. Do you have?
No, I was going to ask.
You need to get me some more.
Have Buddy pass them out while you talk.
In the same spirit as the curriculum and programs, past committees having guests, technology committee is pretty common to have that as well. So Chris Langford is here. Chris is our director of network infrastructure and cybersecurity. Chris has been working on this project as well. So with that, looks like Buddy made it around pretty much to everybody. What this is essentially we have a current internet contract that's going to expire in June of 2018. This is something that, as we did have a committee structure, we discussed this with our board technology committee back in October, again in November, and then our last meeting in January. And what we ended up doing, or just to give you some clarity as well, on our current structure, our current internet is through Grande. And we have 2 6-gig internet connections that come here to Bowling. So as we set out on these services, there was a couple, goals that we wanted to accomplish. One was we wanted to increase our current bandwidth. We felt we're going to certainly need that as we've kind of trended and have grown over the years. Additionally, we're also looking at trying to put in a solution that can give us more resiliency. So essentially, if we have a problem with a particular carrier, or if we have a fiber cut, as you think about today's, the way schools run, just right down to business and attendance, that is a critical component. So we wanted to have something that would have high levels of resiliency. So what we did is we worked with our purchasing department, and we issued a request for proposal, and that request for proposal was sent out to 175 vendors, many of which are the larger internet service providers that you would typically see respond to that: AT&T, CenturyLink, Charter, Grande themselves, Frontier, UPN, Windstream, and Zayo. Out of that process, we ended up receiving 7 responses. And in that initial process, we were looking at trying to make sure that RFP met the federal requirements for the federal E-rate program. We did work with our E-rate consultant to make sure that happened. As we discussed this at the Board Technology Committee level, what we wanted to do is we wanted to also look at all the options. So you have obviously this E-rate approach that looks at just the internet services, but we also wanted to look at what companies could provide us internet service and perhaps any other related products and services. So that RFI that was issued, that one ran from, I gotta get the right date, it ran from November 17th through December the 8th. In that process, we actually had 7 responses again. In that case, out of that, only one company had an internet package that could potentially meet the needs of the district, and their additional or value-added services weren't something that we felt created the value. On a positive note, out of the 7 companies that did respond to that RFI, we have been, they provided services that we're interested in, but that would be outside the scope of what we're looking for in this particular recommendation. So the other item to this is, this is being presented tonight as a discussion item, and on Monday night, this is set up to be an action item. So what our recommendation is going to be is we're going to be bringing forward basically 2 different companies to provide that service. And the idea on that is, as we looked at the responses to the RFP, we also looked at trying to look at the commodity over a 3 and a 5 year term. And the reason for that is there's a couple. One, when you look at how that market can change, hopefully you can get to a spot where you can perhaps get more for less at some point. But it's also quite disruptive on our technology department to change out that services, because you end up changing all of your IP ranges. There's some labor involved in that. And additionally, one of the other projects in the bond package that also has a connection to technology and internet services is when we build a new building out on Josie Lane. We're planning to put a disaster recovery location there. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to really need internet services in both this building and that building. So if at any point internet is cut, the rest of the district keeps rolling if something happens to this building. So what we're going to be bringing forward is a recommendation that has 2 different vendors from two different carriers. And on a positive note, we're going to actually be increasing to 2 10-gig connections. Right now we're on 2 6-gig. And what that's going to allow us to do is have more bandwidth, and it's actually going to cost us less per month than we're paying right now. So with that said, on Monday night, our plan is to bring this forward as an action item. Another time-sensitive component to this is we are planning to, if the board does take action on this on Monday, our plan would then be working with our E-rate consultant to actually file the E-rate required paperwork. The deadline on that is March 22nd, so that's why you're seeing this as a discussion item and going to an action item for Monday night, so that we have time to get the filing in. Otherwise, if we postpone that to the March meeting, that's just a 2 or 3 day window to get it done. So with that, I'd like to open it up to questions if you have any.
Bosnick, how long is this for?
One agreement would be for 3 years. The other one would be a 5-year. The other piece, I did miss a piece in there. Sorry. When we reviewed the reviewed the responses, as I said, we were looking at all the different options. One of the options that we knew we'd have is the option to get internet services through Region 11. So the Service Center a couple years ago basically built out an internet service. They actually contract with Zayo to do that, and we are part of that consortium. So one of the things that we could do as an option was go ahead and use Region 11 for that service. So when we actually did the review of the RFPs, we actually used, in our criteria, we also scored Region 11 as well. So on the Region 11 contract, that's a little bit different structure, and what you're going to see on Monday night is the recommendation is that would be the 5-year agreement.
Right.
And essentially, the build-out cost and the construction cost is amortized over that first 4 years of the agreement, and then the cost of that agreement really falls off in the 5th year. So how it's actually structured, I think it goes down to $1,800 a month. So it's very affordable for that amount of internet. The other company we'd be contracting with, our recommendation would be that it's a 3-year. So essentially what you would be doing is coming back to the market in the 3rd year to, open up a competitive process again and try to get services. And what we'd like to do is kind of leapfrog the market and stay fresh in that instead of going out 5 years all the time.
And on that 3-year contract, that price is before the E-rate reimbursement, correct?
On the 3-year, I believe it is.
And then
Yes, it is.
I'm going to ask, because I have no idea how big 10 gig is. I have no idea. Is that going to be sufficient over that time? I mean, because I know we're at 6 and et cetera, but I mean, is that going to be sufficient to do the 210?
Before we go to that question,
Sure.
could we revisit the
Sure.
the Region Service Center? You asked about E-rate. They
Right.
have already applied for the E-rate
Okay.
for that service. The E-rate.
3-year.
The 3-year, the 3-year.
The
Whichever one.
United Private Network.
Yeah,
Right.
the Service Center is already taking advantage of it.
Right, got
So
it.
it's a reduced rate.
For the 5-year contract.
Correct.
That's for the 5,
Yep.
okay.
And then your question about scale and can we grow?
Right.
Looking at what we're using right now out of our current 6 gig connections and going up to the 10, we've talked about it. We've looked at the security appliances we're putting in. Are they capable of up to that amount of bandwidth? They are, and we believe through the term of that contract we're going to have enough capacity. And part of the reason I feel comfortable with that is because of part of our growth over the last 5 years has been because we've been rolling out this 1-to-1, and once we got to that point, it really has stabilized. So I think where we're going to see increases in bandwidth, it's going to be increases in adoption of use of technology,
Right.
rich media. I think as you look at the next phase of our digital or our instructional material adoption, to think there's going to be a technology element to that, which will require more bandwidth, that we'll see, but I think that growth is going to be much smaller than the rate we were seeing in the previous 5 years of this contract.
And once again, please excuse my technology ignorance, but we haven't done we haven't chosen devices.
Correct.
And so I'm just making sure that we're not putting, if you will, the cart before the horse. I know I'm going very ancient there, but that we don't know what our devices are going to be, and that's not going to have an effect on that capacity for our bandwidth.
No, we don't
Okay.
believe
Okay.
it will. Part of your I guess bottleneck in that regard is the internet itself. So we're going to be good on that side.
All right, thank you.
This would be the bigger concern for more devices, but we're upgrading that, the wireless access.
Correct. Yep.
Asked them all already.
And just for me, just to clarify, this contract will just roll in.
When we get to that, well, there's two pieces. One of the
Make you nervous?
one of the benefits of the two vendors that we're recommending is that we can make both work. So essentially, when that campus is built and we put our secondary our data center there, right now it's at LHS. Our plan is to move that to that campus. Either one of these solutions would work, and I think if by the 3rd year, for example, if we're trying to price out the 3-year contract, we'll look at that again, and obviously they would have an opportunity to bid. But when we get to that point, that building should be, well on its way, and we would make that decision, I think, as we negotiate that contract when it comes up in the 3rd year. But both of these companies would be able to do that right now.
Thank you. Ms. Sells?
Talked about it a lot.
Mr. Miller?
Nope, good job, guys.
Yep. I just have a quick question
Yeah.
about, so do we have any terms or anything we need to cancel with Grande, or is this the final of our terms with Grande Community?
Once the board takes action, we will have to set up a termination period. The other part on this too is it typically takes 60 to 90 days for these companies to actually get the connection set. UPN actually is providing some of our wide area network services, so that timeline should be less, but we'll have to take care of notifying them that our intent to not use the service after June 30th. where there would be no penalty.
Oh, well, okay, so that's what I was going to ask. Is there a penalty or anything for?
If we didn't notify them within the contract
Okay.
agreement, but we have the time to do that if we make the decision now.
Okay. Okay. That's it. All right, are there any other questions? All right, if there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned, and the time is now 9:50. Thank you, everybody.
Wait, that time worked really well.
I was going to show you real quickly on this. This is just a good snapshot of what your classes like architecture, engineering,
I told you, I'm punchy.
mobile
I
application.
am punchy. I make
You had some differences. This one said action for
Okay.
I'm planning on competing in a.
So it's discussion today.
So like when you walk that CTE
Is
class,
that
it's the graphic
I was
design
very
sheet names, those
But, and it had the date for